Terra Fairy. So there may be a few calls there going on as to match in favor of Maurice. But let's get it started. Let's get it kicked off. Round one here in Dortmund. Mousehold and Annihilate for Maurice. Electabuzz and the Sneasler here on the field for Jonathan. So a bit of fake out pressure right off the bat.
This is a really nice lead for Jonathan. You can redirect those beat-ups that could be going into the Annihilate in order to boost up the Rage Fist. But then also you have the Sneasler there ready to threaten the Mousehold. You can Terra Fairy, but then Diaclaw becomes super effective. So Jonathan really in the driving seat heading into this one. Annihilate can be going for one of those bulk ups. It's relatively safe to do so, but then you've got Taunt on the Electabuzz too. So Mousehold deciding, this is looking scary. I want to protect the kids here. Let's go for a protect. As Electabuzz does indeed go for Follow Me.
Follow Me would take away a beat up from the Mousehold. So I really like the way that Jonathan is approaching this matchup, just saying that's the problem. Hit my Electabuzz instead, as the Mousehold correctly protects itself, of course, from that close combat.
Yeah, and that's going to be the bulk up coming out from the Annihilate as well. So, and at full health too, so Maurice taking full advantage of that turn. As long as that Electabuzz is on the field, it can be redirecting away those beat-ups, but this is where the bulk up comes in so handy. You don't need to rely on a partner Pokemon to get some boost to your Annihilate. Rage Fist is still at base power, it hasn't been hit at all, and that's how Rage Fist works. The more hits you receive, the more powerful the move gets.
And it's going to be a struggle for Jonathan to go for his speed control in this situation. Not that Sneasler needs it at all, it's the fastest thing on the field. But for preparation for later, you kind of want to make that Annihilate a little bit slower so it's easier to deal with, and it can't get its drain punches before your Pokemon attack. But Electro Web would activate the Defiant ability, and that could be catastrophic.
We'll have to see if that comes into play, but for now, Electabuzz wants to be the star of the show, going for Follow Me. Here comes the Diaclaw, and it gets paralyzed. The Mousehold has the paralysis. It might be unable to move, but it's not guaranteed. Here comes a bare Rage Fist right now into the Electabuzz. Time to deal with this as quickly as possible. Just look, the dividends that Eviolite plays, the Eviolite has in store, but Mousehold is able to get that taunt off into the Electabuzz, and that's huge because it can now no longer go for Follow Me's, so beat up is very much online, but the Mousehold is still threatened by the Sneasler.
It is, and seeing how much damage that Diaclaw did, doesn't matter if the Mousehold goes for Terror or not. Jonathan doesn't have to risk lowering the defenses of its Sneasler. Not that it matters too much because of the Focus Sash, but now you don't have to worry about that type matchup. You can just knock out the Mousehold and take away the beat-up from being able to be a factor at this point in the game. And that could really set up Jonathan for the long run, where you take away one of the most important support pieces. Maybe you've got to switch out your Electabuzz to bring it back in later, but seeing how much that Rage Fist did to it, I think it's got a lot of opportunity to redirect attacks in the future.
That Electabuzz, quite the opposite here for a long time, rather than necessarily a good time. But Diaclaw heading straight into the Sinistcha. Will it get a status? No, it does not. The Annihilate able to get a bulk up off as the Sinistcha is providing some lovely matchup on the field. But of course, the Annihilate at full HP doesn't need to recover at all. But there comes the Electro Web. Absolutely huge, because now this Annihilate gets a double attack boost. Let's see if this Annihilate can now just go on an absolute rage through the rest of Jonathan's team.
This is what I love about watching Jonathan play. He is aware of what's going on, but he's willing to take those risks. He can see a game plan in the distance. And just making sure that you're trying to knock out the Mousehold with the Diaclaw plus the Electro Web might be part of his game plan, but now definitely not his game plan. The Electabuzz is switching in on out of there.
Electabuzz has been grounded and coming out instead. Here swoops Dragonite, and it's time to get Sparkly Trainers. Time for our first Terastallization of our EU 2025 season. It's going to be the Sneasler. It's gone for its Stellar Terra, the Terra type introduced in the Indigo Disc around 9 months ago at this point. This is going to be giving a one-time boost to a move of Jonathan's choice. A boosted Diaclaw with that Terra Poison into the
it's not enough.
Not going to be enough for the knockout, but it is enough for the sleep. That is not something Maurice wants to see. That is something Sinistcha is not going to be able to act this turn. A little bit of recovery from the berry.
Wow, that is such an important sleep there onto the Sinistcha. I'm just going to double check this because I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, it does have the ability to go for a Trick Room. So that could have been a fantastic game state for Maurice to be able to get into. The Sinistcha going for a Trick Room, the Annihilate has got a speed drop already. It's got all those attack boosts, and then it would have been the fastest Pokemon on the field. But Diaclaw showing exactly why it's one of the most scary moves in the video game right now, just putting that Sinistcha to sleep. And now, with the Dragapult coming in, carrying that Choice Band, at least the Annihilate's got 2 defense boosts that it's had from his bulk ups. It's going to be able to resist that Choice Band Dragapult a little bit better than it would have otherwise, but it still puts Maurice a little bit on the back foot.
One mug of matcha is enough to send anyone to sleep, and that's certainly Sinistcha getting a taste of its own medicine. Archaladon joining the field right now. Outrage goes for the outrage. It goes straight into with a critical hit to boot. You do not see that every day, trainers. And Archaladon brought down to such low HP, but at least the Diaclaw not going to be doing anything into that steel type. Big drain punch now into the Sneasler. Not very effective because it is a part poison type. No recovery there because it was at full HP. Really interesting to see Maurice go for that play because he's threatened by super effective damage from the ghost type Dragapult, but now it's locked into outrage with the Choice Band.
And it can't switch out. The Rage Fist is going to be able to target it down. Now, this Annihilate hasn't yet been hit, so it's going to be relying on those boosts to its attack stat to be able to knock out the Dragapult, but almost certain that it's going to be able to. If the Outrage does target down into that 8 HP Archaladon, it's obviously going to be going down, but it could also target into the Annihilate, and that would boost up the power of that Rage Fist.
The Annihilate is at +4 right now in its attack. Outrage this time going into the Annihilate. It's really bulky and got some defense boost. It's a lot of damage, but nowhere near enough as Dragon Pulse coming out from this bridge over troubled water going into the Sneasler. Big Rage Fist into the Dragon Ball. Surely it's going to be enough to secure the one-hit knockout, and it is!
Dragapult taking a one-hit knockout, going back to its trainer. That's the first knockout in the Dortmund Regional Championships here, and it's a one-hit knockout. We start the weekend as we mean to go on here, but that now gives Jonathan the opportunity to bring in a Pokemon of his choosing, and that's going to be Primarina, and you can see the effect of the Electabuzz going for the Electro Web onto the Annihilate in the previous turns. Now the Primarina is likely to be faster than it. It's going to be able to target down the Annihilate with a Moonblast. It could haze away all of those boosts that the Annihilate has spent so long trying to get its way up. And of course, the Sneasler is going to be able to target down into the Archaladon with its Assault Vest. It can't protect itself, so it's probably going to be going down now.
Oh, well, yeah, so it's on such a low HP as well. The Diaclaw targeting into the Annihilate this time. Jonathan fishing for one of those cheeky status conditions. Snarl coming out, though, into Jonathan's team. That's going to be reducing the special attack of, crucially, the Primarina here. Sneasler doesn't mind that so much, being a physical attacker. Moonblast directed into the Annihilate here as well. So no haze. We do still have these stat boosts online, but it's a button that Jonathan can quite freely click at any point.
Maurice has played this really well, actually. I think Jonathan was respecting the switch in to the Sinistcha, activate the Hospitality, get the Annihilate a little bit more healthy, be able to take a Moonblast from the Primarina. But actually, Maurice holding his ground and just saying, no, I'm going to Snarl. I'm going to make sure that your Primarina is not doing as much damage, that actually it's less likely to get a knockout, and then try to get in that Hospitality HP boost to the Annihilate a little bit later on.
Yeah, it was the Electabuzz being the star of the show earlier, but right now Primarina is here, providing one of his beautiful arias on the field. It's time for Maurice to switch, going into that Sinistcha. So here we're going to see that Hospitality ability come in. That was so cute, seeing its little sleeping face as it came out of the Pokeball. There it is, a nice little boost to the HP for this Annihilate. But here we go. It's time for Maurice to match this Terra into the Annihilate, going for its Terra Water. Now, we were saying before how Terra Fire is a common Terra type on Annihilate, but Terra Water is great into Primarina. That's going to be resisting those Hyper Voices changed by Liquid Voice into Water, and of course neutral damage from the Moonblast. Are we going to have a status? It's poison. Okay. Jonathan has had the full trio, the full set of status conditions right now. Annihilate, though, just poisoned, takes that Moonblast. Now, a special attack drop would have boosted the attack even further of the Annihilate, thanks to its Defiant. But here comes a big Rage Fist now into the Primarina. That's enough for the knockout. This is why you've got to respect expect this furious ape.
You didn't even need the hospitality HP recovery to be able to survive that combination of attacks, and partly because of that Snarl dropping the special attack of Primarina previously. But that Rage Fist has been boosted up twice now, and it's really looking for knockouts in every Pokemon that it's targeting down. Here's the Electabuzz coming back in. That damage that it had before was from a Rage Fist that hadn't been boosted up, and now, well, Charlie, I think it's going to take a little bit more damage this time around.
I'm just looking at those status conditions flashing on the screen for poor Maurice here. This is really dire straits, although Maurice has been playing this incredibly well, but his Pokemon will not be having the best time on the field right now with those status conditions. Now, Electabuzz is threatening super effective damage into this now Terra Water Annihilate, but as you said at the start, just took the Bear Rage Fist. Now it's got all these boosts. Electabuzz is in the face of a very different beast right now.
It certainly is, and of course, if that Sinistcha wakes up this turn, which it has the opportunity to do, it can redirect attacks away from the Annihilate here, and Drain Punch is just as viable here as the Rage Fist to be able to recover some of that HP. I think it all comes down to whether or not the combination of Dire Claw and Electro Web can knock out the Annihilate, but we're not going to be seeing it this turn. Sorry, Charlie, Maushold has gone down.
Maushold has been felled. The Friend Guard is off the field. Here comes the Electro Web. This is going to be giving another Defiant boost.
Oh, it's enough.
If it can hang on,
Single
but
target.
It cannot. A critical hit as well. Single target. That's the Annihilate down. So now all of a sudden, Maurice also down to his final two Pokemon, with an Electabuzz looking incredibly healthy. We know that the Archaldon is on such low health. The Sinistcha is asleep. Is going to need to be waking up sooner rather than later. And by sooner, I mean now.
Yeah, right now. Right. Sinistcha! Sinistcha! Yeah, it's definitely got to. But I mean, that hospitality is actually coming in clutch here, because it takes the Archaludon away from being knocked out from an Electro Web. Sneasler definitely going to be able to knock it out with a close combat. That hasn't been boosted up yet by the Terrastella. Definitely a KO potential here. But as we said in the last turn, Rage Powder could. And it is the wake up this turn. Rage Powder going off from Sinistcha. Let's see how Jonathan is targeted.
Sinistcha, I'm so pleased you're listening to your alarm there. That is close combat going into the Sinistcha there. Electro Web coming out as well. That's really interesting. Just a little bit of chip damage there. I wonder why close combat was targeting into the Sinistcha.
It's the Rage Powder targeting that down,
of course.
stopping it from going into the Archaludon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the Rage Powder redirecting that close combat. So Rage Powder really coming in clutch right now, as the special attack is dropped of the Electabuzz, and that is enough to knock out the Terra option. That's Sneasler for Jonathan. And this Electabuzz, it certainly a support Pokemon, has access to a little bit of chip damage that it can go for here. But then the Archaludon, the more you hit that, the more its body press is boosted up. So you've got to be very careful indeed. This Electabuzz might just not have enough gas in the tank to see this one through.
It's going to be very tough for the Electabuzz to do anything with its only attack being electric type and resisted by both of Maurice's Pokemon. Of course, we know that the Sinistcha has the life due on how Jonathan is able to target down that Annihilate in the early game. And I really love this adaptation, getting Dragapult with Sneasler on the field, getting Fake Out, getting the ability for Dragapult to go for those powerful Dragon Darts, maybe locking into Phantom Force if you can do what you need to do to knock out that Maushold, stop the normal type redirection, and then you're targeting a Ghost type with a Ghost type super effective move before it gets the opportunity to get too many bulk ups going.
You've got three fierce Pokemon on the field, and you've got a cute family of mice that's providing such ample support for the Annihilate right now. Beats up very much online here. You cannot redirect over on Jonathan's side of the field. You could Fake Out. Of course, you've got that Dire Claw threat as well. And Maurice has that ability to switch to something in the back as well if he doesn't like the face of this Dragapult into his Ghost-type Annihilate. But it's time to Terrastalize. It's time already in turn 1 of this game 2 for the Dragapult to become a pure Dragon-type right now.
That's a really, really dangerous-looking Dragapult.
Yep.
And with the Dragon Darts targeting, it could target both Pokemon down and do a lot of damage. Maushold going for the Protect. If Annihilate hasn't gone for a Protect, which it has, I think that's probably wise in this situation. Find out what the Dragapult is going to be locking itself into, and it's going to be Outrage. And Charlie, I'm gonna make a call here.
Oh, yeah.
That outrage would do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Ben. I think your years of experience have really come in handy there, as Direclaw going into the Annihilate as well. So may well have been causing a status condition on the field right now. Got a lot of Dragon Heads staring across at you from the field with that Dragapult's head, then the 2 Dreepy, and then that Dragon Terror Crown as well. Certainly very fierce indeed, but it's a really nice protect from Maurice. Just scouting out what move this Dragapult is now going to be locked into, given it's holding the choice band.
And I wonder if Maurice is going to consider going for the Terra Fairy on their Maushold that's immune to the Dragon typing, would be immune if the Outrage targeted into that slot. As you said before, Jonathan doesn't have control about where that Outrage goes.
Well, let's find out.
Terra.
Oh, it is going into the Maushold, so Terra Fairy would have got around it. That's going to be enough for the one-hit knockout on all 4 of those little mice. So no more Friend Guard on the field for this poor Annihilate. Here comes Direclaw. Oh my goodness, hold your breath, everybody. What's it going to be doing? Is it going to be causing a status? It doesn't. The Annihilate able to get that bulk up off. Now a boost to its attack and its defense.
And getting set up for the rest of the game. But the adaptation that Jonathan's made, getting that powerful offensive pressure in from the Dragapult right early doors, and also taking advantage of its Terror type as well, boosting up the power of its Outrages yet further, just means that it's going to be breaking through whatever it's going to be targeting down. I mean, we saw the Outrage non-Terror go into the Annihilate in the previous game, and it did, what, 40% roughly? It's got 1 less defense boost, and the Dragapult is Terror this turn, this game. If the Sinister decides to go for a Rage Powder, it's going to redirect the Outrage into it. That's probably a one-hit knockout, even though Sinister's pretty bulky. And if it targets down into the Annihilate, well, maybe it's not picking up the KO, but it's doing substantial damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the question is this Sinister actually going to be able to act on this turn? Is it going to be statused once more by this Sneasler? Well, let's find out. First, we're going to see where the Outrage goes. It is into the Annihilate. How much damage are we doing here? A lot. The Annihilate down to 34. Here comes the Direclaw into the Sinister. What's it going to do? Paralyze. Okay, let's see. Can the Sinister act on this turn? What's it going for? First, we're going to see this Rage Fist coming out from the Annihilate. Boosted once now. And with the bulk up, and that's going to be enough for a one-hit knockout. That is the Terrestrialization down and out for Jonathan. But now all eyes on this Sinister. Is it going to be able to move on this turn? What's it gone for? Yes, it is the Trick Room. We're twisting the dimensions.
And Sinister becoming even faster than it once was in the Trick Room environment. That may be a benefit to Maurice in this particular game state. And now we have the speed orders reversed, that Sneasler is going to be the slowest Pokemon on the field, but that does again give Jonathan the opportunity to bring in his Primarina. And the Primarina is sitting in a pretty good spot. I mean, naturally speaking, it is going to be slower or faster in the Trick Room environment than an Annihilate. And because we haven't had the Electro Web that we saw in last game, the speed orders are kind of working in the favor of Jonathan now. But of course, there is the life due from the Sinister. There is the ability to redirect the Moonblast. There is the ability for Maurice to be able to control this situation and use those Rage Fists that the Annihilate has been building up in its favor. That is, if the Sinister is able to move with the Paralysis.
Yeah, you've got a chance that you'll be able to move. You've got a chance that you just won't do anything at all. That is how Paralysis works, as Sneasler decides to sneak on out to the back. And here comes the Electabuzz, ready to provide that support for Primarina. Primarina going to be going for that Protect. Let's see where Maurice has been targeting here. Magic Gotcha, that's going to be a spread type move anyway, as long as it connects onto this Electabuzz, and indeed it does. So into the Electabuzz it goes. Might be a chance to burn here, a little bit of a chance to heal back some HP as well. Just a little bit though, that Electabuzz taking it so very well. And the Electabuzz does get the burn, so it's on a timer at least, and it's such a bulky Pokemon that could actually prove crucial. Rage Fist targeting into the other slot. So Maurice calling that Protect. Really nice damage onto the Electabuzz. It does hang on, and that is just a testament once more to that Eviolite held item. But that Electabuzz brought down very low, and the burn is going to be enough to pick up the knockout. So there you go. You can see how crucial that Magic Gotcha burn was.
I think Jonathan really playing around the Annihilate, going for a Protect from the Primarina, maybe trying to just make sure that the Primarina hangs on yet another turn, get the Electabuzz in, get a Follow Me on the field, and then be feeling a bit safer about going for on the offensive with the Pre-Marina in Trick Room. Maybe an indication as well to how that Life Orb Pre-Marina has been trained. Maybe it's a little bit more speedy than most, and Jonathan's just trying to play around that. But Maurice, just seeing right through it, knocking out the Electabuzz is a big support piece that Jonathan is now missing, and that Annihilate is no longer as safe, nor is the Pre-Marina, but the Annihilate's going to be getting out of here this turn.
Yeah, Maurice deciding that it's unlikely for the Sneasler to be targeting a fighting type attack into that Pokemon, given that it would be doing no damage at all, being a ghost type, and it's going to be the Archaludon switching in. That gets a free defense boost. It's flipped on this turn, but it wasn't going to move anyway, thanks to it just being switched in. So a free defense boost, 2 stamina, boosting on that body press. Not very effective into the 2 Pokemon on the other side, but they really do stack up. And sometimes not very effective damage can just look like really good damage.
It can, and Hype Voice coming out from the Pre-Marina, coming out here and boosting up stamina on the defenses of this Archaludon yet again. So Body Press is active. Not going to be that effective against the Pokemon that Jonathan has on the board. But most crucially, I think, is that Sneasler's close combat is going to be much less offensive now that effectively Archaludon has double the amount of defense that it did when it just switched in and took those 2 attacks. So in combination with the Life Dew and the Rage Power from the Sinistcha, it's going to be very, very tough to be able to take down this Archaludon. You can go for a Haze here on the Pre-Marina, take away those defense boosts, but until you deal with that redirection from the Sinistcha, you're not consistently going to be able to target down the Archaludon whatsoever.
And it's such good damage from the Sinistcha into the Pre-Marina. Nearly just pick out the knockout. If we get a burn here, that would be enough to take out the Pre-Marina as the Sinistcha slowly heals all the way back up. Let's see if there's going to be any burn in sight coming out on either of these Pokemon. It is the Pre-Marina.
Oh.
That is exactly the Pokemon that Maurice would have wanted to burn. So it's going down at the end of this very turn. Dragon Pulse gonna be not quite enough to deal with this Sneasler right now. Moonblast into the Archaludon. It's holding the Assault Vest, boosting up its special defense. So a really nice item you can give to your Archaludon there. And you know what? The burn's not even gonna matter because the Life Orb on that Pre-Marina is gonna be taking it out thanks to the damage it dealt on that turn. Close combat now, super effective. Into the Archaludon. Gonna be enough to pick up the knockout here, but you do have that Annihilate in the back. That Sneasler, very low health. It doesn't have a spread type move.
Now, where there's a will, there's a way,
yeah,
Charlie, in this match, and the way is Dire Claw.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, we are still going to be in Trick Room for 1 more turn, and that's going to give the opportunity for the Annihilate to get healed up with a Life Dew, maybe take it out of range of the Sneasler's Dire Claw in this situation. It's going for a Protect. It needs to against the 2 attacks, but it's fully paralyzed. Sinistcha there not moving.
Yeah, Sinistcha is not able to provide its lovely matcher for the Annihilate thanks to that full paralysis. So that could have been really, really crucial there. At least the Annihilate gets a little bit of passive leftovers recovery. Could go for a Protect on this next turn to get even more. Could even try and go for another Life Dew with this match, with this Sinistcha. It's on full HP and it's already paralyzed, so it can't be status. Perhaps Maurice thinking, well, it's a good thing I did have that status condition earlier on, so I don't get put to sleep now. Yeah. But let's see how this turn plays out. Is it going to be the last one? Dire Claw, not enough to pick up the Annihilate. Is it going to be because it's going to get that poison? Okay, that's probably the best one that you want to see in this situation. And it's looking good for Maurice. Here comes the Drain Punch. That's the Sneasler down. Annihilate, a little bit of recovery to boot. And that's absolutely huge for Maurice Uteg, claiming the victory.
Really seeing a quick way to break through it. Like Freeze Ella on the Sneasler, that could be really cool as well.
Well, we are jumping into this game 1 here in round 3 in Dortmund. It is going to be Flavio leading out with the Rillaboom and the King Gambit. I'm going to see Antonio lead off with that double dragon pair of Garchomp and the Dragonite.
Yeah, double dragon coming back in full force here. Hasn't been around for a while. I think it was like Black and White was the double dragon era, but here they are again. Garchomp. Its Earthquake is going to be weakened here, so it might need to be forced into Stomping Tantrum if it wants to hit that King Gambit super effectively, because of course in the grassy terrain Earthquake will be halved, but Dragonite also has access to Low Kick, so it's going to be able to threaten some really good damage into the King Gambit as well, or it could just go for its Terra Blast immediately to be able to one-hit knock out that opposing Rillaboom. It is multi-scale here though, so it is open to a fake out. That might be why it's switching into the Ninetales.
Yeah, we're going to see it just retreat for later on as that Alolan Ninetales comes to the field and starts the Snow with that Snow Warning ability. Going to give a defense boost, of course, course, to the ice types on the field. Your little Ninetales being the only one. It is going to be able to take attacks from the opposite side a little bit better this turn. Diving in with our first terrestrialization as well. It is going to be the King Gambit on Flavio's side, going to that solo Dark Terror type here, and the fake out followed up from the Rillaboom coming into the Ninetales, but not going to prevent or flinch it this turn as a stomping tantrum taken very well from that King Gambit.
Yeah, very nicely done. And there is that Swords Dance coming out from the King Gambit. But really nice switch in for the Ninetales here, because now you can go for an Encore into that King Gambit, and you can lock it down into that Swords Dance. That might force it into the Sucker Punch this turn. And then if you just don't go for an attacking move, then that Sucker Punch becomes useless as well.
Yeah, now you can almost switch out the Garchomp if you want in this situation into something more preferable in the back to not have to, because Garchomp will be forced into protection if it doesn't go for an attack, so may get a little bit more of an advantage position if you switch in something like we may see Antonio go for here. And this puts Flavio in a really awkward position where do you keep the King Gambit on the field, or do you try and get a switch yourself to kind of get around that Encore threat that's coming out?
Yeah, you can see what he's going for with the Terra Dark there, because the Stomping Tantrum really didn't do as much damage, and it's not going to do any damage from the Garchomp this time. It is switching into that King Gambit to try and avoid that Sucker Punch that could be coming out into that slot. Of course, if that was the move that was chosen, it will fail, but then you could just go for the Encore into the Swords Dance if it wasn't a Sucker Punch. That's probably why the Rillaboom has now switched into that Clefable, and the King Gambit on Flavio's side is going for that Protect. So if that is going to be an Encore, which it does look like Antonio went for into that King Gambit's Protect, now you can go for a Follow Me, and you keep those +2 boosts on the King Gambit.
Yeah, and it's definitely one way to get around that threat of the Encore, bringing your Redirector onto the field, because now you can draw that in with your Clefable, free up your own King Gambit to get the damage that you need off onto the opposite side of the field. Of course, having a way to hit that Ninetales, get rid of it as quick as possible is probably going to be the key here, but you can't forget about the King Gambit. Kind of Antonio identifying that maybe that Redirector does come in for that support to get around the Encore, and why the King Gambit's coming onto the field to really threaten that opposing Clefable. And now the Terrestrialization taken up by the King Gambit on Flavio's side of the field. The Clefable's not going to be able to go for that Steel Terror type to get around some of those threats from Antonio's King Gambit, as we see the Clefable just switch out, not want to use that redirection, just using it as a bit of a decoy.
And there is that Dondozo joining the field. Excellent Pokemon to bring to this game. Blizzard coming out here. Could have been another Encore into that King Gambit, but no. Smartly going for the Blizzard, expecting the Clefable to switch out there. Ironhead follow-up into the King Gambit, putting it down into the red, but here is a +2 Kowtow Cleave. Absolutely massive damage into that Ninetales, but thanks to the snow being up, that defense boost keeping it on the field.
Probably in that Sucker Punch range now, the Ninetales, you would say, especially with that Terrestrialization boost, so you have to be careful if you are Antonio. Of course, you can get around that with the Encore, but what do you Encore this turn? Do you Encore the Kowtow Cleave, or do you just utilize your own King Gambit now to try and remove it from the field? Of course, Flavio being able to position that Dondozo on the field now, it is going to be threatened by that Freeze Dry. But of course, it does have those options where it can click into, for sure, or Yawn, and start disrupting things on Antonio's side of the field and breaking the flow that Antonio's seeming to get into.
Yeah, if that Ninetales is taken care of, it doesn't really seem like Antonio has an easy way to break through that Dondozo. That's probably why the Ninetales is protecting itself here, to keep it safe from any Sucker Punches that comes out. And yes, Flavio did go for that Sucker Punch into the opposing Ninetales. King Gambit on Antonio's side of the field is now able to follow up with an Ironhead into that Pterodot King Gambit, able to pick up the knockout, so no more Sucker Punch available on the Ninetales here, but Dondozo has been left alone to go for that Curse and start setting itself up.
Yeah, the Curse has already started, dropping that speed, +1 to the attack and the defense stat on this Dondozo, going to be able to take those physical attacks from the Garchomp, from the Dragonite that's in the back, and what is out on the field now in that King Gambit. Not so much the Ninetales, but it is pretty threatened, and it is very low health. Of course, when you bring in something like this Rillaboom now from Flavio's side of the field, going to have that fake out. Has just protected, so it is going to be susceptible to that fake out, and also the Grassy Glide will probably be in range to take that down. So the Ninetales not in a great position. Do we say Antonio adjust that? Potentially bring something else in to better deal with the threats out on the field from Flavio's side.
Yeah, you could switch in the Garchomp to get some extra rough skin damage onto the opposing Rillaboom, whether it goes for a fake out or a Grassy Glide. It's going to be really close if that Ninetales in range of Grassy Glide. It would be in range of a fake out into a Grassy Glide for sure, but that still, even though it takes 2 turns, still keeps the Dondozo very safe. And if this Ninetales is taken care of, how is Antonio easily breaking through this Dondozo, given that the rest of his Pokemon are all physical attackers, and it's already got one stage of increased defense on its curse? That means it's actually able to do some significant damage with the Wave Crash as well. You could easily just go for a Fake Out and a Wave Crash into that Ninetale slot. That means you're not taking a Freeze Dry, and if something switches in, it's still taking a lot of damage.
And because of that threat, we are seeing the Ninetales going to be held for later on as the Dragonite comes in. That multi-skill is broken from the Grassy Glide that comes out there, followed up by a Kowtow Cleave doing some respectable damage into the Rillaboom, just above 50%, and a Yawn coming out from the Dondozo, now going to start that disruption. It's got the curse off, boosting up its stats, and now going to really disrupt Antonio's side of the field. The next turn, if this King Gambit doesn't switch out, it will fall asleep.
Yeah, and that means you won't be out doing any damage with the Kowtow Cleaves. That's actually doing noticeable damage to that Rillaboom. It's easily going to be a 3-hit knockout, especially because the grassy terrain has disappeared from the field now. You could just switch into the Clefable to be able to soak up that Kowtow Cleave as well if it does want to stay in and accept the sleep. But it can easily just switch out into any Pokemon that's in the back, but nothing really wants to take a +1 Wave Crash here. Ninetales will definitely be in range of that attack. Garchomp will take some significant damage from it as well. And there's the Rillaboom switching out for Flavio as well. Going to be able to get that Clefable on the field for some redirection.
Yeah, it's a really nice switch. Not only going to be able to get that grassy terrain back later, which has dispersed now, but the Clefable coming in, going to be able to take those attacks from the Dragonite a little bit better. The King Gambit forced out. We talked about the Yawn there. Doesn't want to take that sleep turn. Garchomp entering the field, but does this open up the door for Dondozo to further disrupt or get another curse off or start the offensive? We are going to see a terrestrialization from Antonio's side of the field, finally locking in with that flying Terra type on the Dragonite, going to boost those flying type attacks that it has access to, but which slot will be targeting into? Terra Blast here, it is going to be coming out from the Dragonite into the Clefable, but taken so well.
Yeah, that's not even going to knock it out in 2 hits, and there is that Wave Crash +1 boosted. That's so much damage into the Garchomp. Yes, you do get a bit of Rough Skin and the Wave Crash recoil, but that Garchomp, it's in range of 2 Life Orb ticks now.
That is so worth the recoil there, isn't it? And you know the damage, that's off 1 curse alone, so this must be quite an offensive Dondozo. They're doing so much damage, nearly picking up what is quite a good defensive Pokemon in Garchomp. Not the best position for Antonio to be taking, and the Garchomp now in a position where it will outspeed everything on the field. It can go for that Earthquake as well. Now it has got the Dragonite next to it. The Flying type going to be immune to that and provide a little bit of damage, but the curse probably not going to be enough there to cut through the Dondozo right now. Will the double up though? You can't really do it with that redirection either, Jamie.
Yeah, and I think going for the terrestrialization on the Dragonite as well, yes, that's nice to be able to do some good damage with Terra Blast, but now you're neutral to the Wave Crash, and that would do still some very significant damage to the Dragonite. There is that Earthquake coming out from the Garchomp, going to be able to try and bypass the redirection from Clefable, but Clefable does smartly go for the Protect. You're still going to be able to do a nice chunk of damage to that opposing Well, I say nice chunk of damage. That wasn't really that nice chunk of damage, but every little bit does help. And there was the Terra Blast trying to pick up the knockout on that Clefable. If an Earthquake and Terra Blast double up had hit that Clefable, it would have been KO'd. But now here's the +1 Wave Crash once again. Look how much damage it is doing. But I think the crucial thing here is Wave Crash is giving recoil. There wasn't an easy way to break through the Dondozo, but it might actually be breaking through itself.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The Garchomp's probably got 1 more attack left before it goes down to that Life Orb recoil, and that is the problem. Can you get the most value out of that move? The Earthquake's the most probably obvious thing to click in here, but if that Rillaboom comes back onto the field, it's going to reduce the damage of that Earthquake by 50%, and you're not going to get the value that you need, and the Garchomp's going to just go down for a little bit of a whimper here. But that Dragonite does provide a threat. Can it take down this Dondozo if it's targeted into that this turn? If not, it probably will go down to a Wave Crash.
Yeah, we will have to see. There's the Earthquake, and Rillaboom did just switch in. That means the Earthquake does do half damage. It brings the Dondozo down into the red, though. Garchomp is going to go down to its own Life Orb recoil, but it might have just done enough damage here to put that Dondozo in range. Here's a Terra Blast coming out from the Dragonite into the Dondozo, and it's in the red. It's got +1 defense, but that is enough to be able to pick up the KO, and now that's the biggest damage dealer that Flavio had available left. It doesn't seem like he has too much damage available anymore.
Yeah, and I think you're preserving the Pokemon very well. You've got the Ninetales or that King Gambit to bring in now, which the King Gambit does threaten that remaining Clefable that you're looking at as probably one of the better options to deal with the Dragonite that's so low health. You do have a way to deal at least neutral damage with the Moonblast into it, but for your trouble, you're going to have to go for that Fake Out, double into it, and the Dragonite here has got got the ability just to protect. The same with the Ninetales as well. The only Pokemon that doesn't have that protect that would be an obvious kind of fake-out target this next turn would be the Kingambit here. But if you do that, you kind of leave that Dragonite open to go for whatever it wants.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing how Flavio breaks through the Kingambit now. It's been left at full HP the entire game. If you go for your grass-type attacks, that's resisted. If you go for a Moonblast, well, that could suddenly get a special attack drop, activating Defiant, and then suddenly Kingambit is knocking out both Pokemon in one shot. So I think that Antonio is really in the driving seat here. Yes, you do have Fake Out available on this turn. Yes, you can go for Redirection to keep one of the Pokemon safe, but I just don't see the damage anymore into this Kingambit.
No, I completely agree with you. It seems like a very uphill struggle as the players are deciding the final or the last remaining turns here. The Fake Out coming out into the Kingambit here, going to prevent it from moving this turn. Has the Clefable got enough to be able to take it, the Dragonite down, as we've seen Extreme Speed into that Rillaboom. Kingambit flinching here, and the Moonblast coming out, but into that Kingambit, and with the Assault Vest, soaking that up so comfortably.
Yeah, that's just not going to do it. Maybe if it was a 2v1 of Rillaboom and Clefable just against Kingambit, but Rillaboom's being KO'd to another Terra Blast or maybe an Extreme Speed, it's not going to be able to break through this Kingambit very easily. So it seemed like the Dondozo was in a really good position, but I think the main thing was just Brave Crash did too much damage to itself. It was in a really good position with the +1 defense, but I think that probably like 70% of the damage to the Dondozo was just damage it did to itself.
Yeah, and the Rough Skin, like we said initially, when you're doing that much damage to the Garchomp, you don't mind it, but then after time when it's stacking up and you've got that double attack coming into it, it really does make such a difference for you to be able to take full advantage of it. You can see the offensive outlet that it's got, but I think you need something like the Clefable next to it to maybe draw in those attacks to kind of keep it a little bit safer. As we see the Terra Blast from this Dragonite into the Rillaboom, it is going to be enough to take it down, taking Flavio down to that last Pokemon, and the solo Clefable, has it got enough to take on the 3 on Antonio's side as the Iron Head is coming out. Going to be enough to lock it up. Antonio taking game 1.
We still got a tiny bit of information there just at the end. Kingambit outsped the Clefable.
That is, yeah.
Like, Clefable is notably impactful in this game. The Kingambit didn't seem like it was doing too much. Yes, the Swords Dance was nice, but then you were hitting into resisted hits into the Kingambit and Ninetales, and they were still able to survive. It's going to be a run back for Antonio there. Double Dragon coming out, Garchomp and Dragonite, but Flavio switching it up. Going to be leading immediately with this Dondozo. Head up with that Rillaboom.
Yeah, the Rillaboom coming out, it does enable the Dondozo to have a little bit of alleviation, especially against something like that Dragonite that could go for that Terastallization this turn, threaten with that Terra Blast or one of the other attacks that it's got. But the Garchomp in a position now where it's not going to be able to get maximum damage off onto the field. Obviously, the Rillaboom not affected by that Earthquake, and the Grassy Terrain now allows the Dondozo to either get a Fake Out into something like that Dragonite and then go for the Yawn. Not going to see that, though, as we see the Rillaboom just preserved for later. The more preferable Pokemon coming in against this Double Dragon, which is that Fairy type in Clefable.
Yeah, Clefable's very good against the Dragonite and a Garchomp for sure, but it is a turn 1 Terastallization coming out from the Dragonite. Of course, you want access to your Flying Terra Blast to be able to do the most amount of damage you can, and then the Garchomp would also be able to do some significant damage here. The Dondozo has been left to be potentially targeted by both Pokemon because there was no Fake Out. That's a really good chunk of damage from the Dragon Claw from the Garchomp. Life Orb boosted, of course, and here's the Terra Blast coming out, but it was into what was the Rillaboom slot. Now they're switched in Clefable, and as we saw, doesn't quite pick up the 2-hit knockout, and there is that Dondozo setting itself up with that +1 attack and +1 defense with that Curse.
Yeah, it's got that 1 up already, and we've seen the damage that this +1 attack Dondozo can do from that game 1. It's going to able to do the same thing in this situation against Antonio. The one thing you would say, if you could preserve that Clefable well from Flavio's side of the field, it does have access to the move Life Dew, so it can heal up that Dondozo and get rid of that recoil, almost kind of supplementing the recoil that you're going to take. And the Garchomp already taking a little bit of chip already. Of course, it is being supplemented by the Grassy Terrain, which is restoring health each turn, but it has taken that tiny bit of chip. Can you get it in a position? Do you go for another Curse here, Jamie?
If you get another Curse, and then you've also got your Life Dew to recover that, you're not really breaking through the Dondozo very easily at all. There's no leftovers on this Dondozo. It has opted for the Covert Cloak instead. Leftovers would have been really nice here to get all that recovery. But yeah, if you can get a Life Dew off, then you basically sorted. But there was a lot of damage on that first turn. The Clefable would be in range of a double up if you go for something like even an Earthquake in the Grassy Terrain and also the Terra Blast. That would be able to pick up the knockout. But here comes that Terastallization from the Dondozo here. It's going to be able to resist a Terra Blast, but it does now make itself weak to any of the ground type attacks. Of course, resist existing Dragon as well, if that was the move of choice. But no, it's Stomping Tantrum, just very slightly weaker than Dragon Claw, but covering very nicely for that Terra Steel. Really, really good damage into that Dondozo. No Follow Me coming out, and it is a Terra Blast follow-up. Also into that Dondozo, and now it's the Steel type of +1 defense. It is able to survive. The Clefable did not go for the Follow Me. It did instead go for that Life Dew. Now the Dondozo is going to be able to get a bit of recovery, as well as that Clefable. That might put it out of range of the double up from the Garchomp and the Dragonite as well. But here comes the Wave Crash into the Garchomp. Not enough for the knockout. And this is going to be so much recoil. This is the Rough Skin and also the Wave Crash recoil. And it seems like Dondozo just held on.
Just held on. Such a key turn there. You think the Life Dew was such a great move, because and then you thinking, okay, it's in a position where the next turn it can probably get another Wave Crash off, but not with that recoil, not with that Rough Skin damage. And the Garchomp in a position now where it probably can get an Earthquake off here. It doesn't have to worry about the redirection, and you can probably pick up the Dondozo even though that Earthquake is weakened, and then it frees up your Dragonite to get another Terra Blast off into the Clefable, start chipping things down on that side. And because Flavio's committed to that Terastallization as well, you're removing a key element of his team, not only the Dondozo, the offensive outlet there, but you're also getting rid of the option for Flavio to take advantage of one of the best mechanics that we've seen in the Pokemon franchise. The Earthquake coming out from the Garchomp, weakened by that Grassy Terrain, but no, it is enough to take down the Dondozo, and it will be felled this turn.
Yeah, and that was a Follow Me coming out from Clefable, which is now going to be useless because the Dondozo has been taken care of. The Garchomp is going to take some Life Orb recoil, but because the previous Grassy Terrain recovery was able to allow it to survive this turn, here's the follow-up of the Terra Blast into the Clefable, bringing it down into the red, and this could have been a Moonblast from the Clefable, but no, it went for that Follow Me instead.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate there. You get the logic behind going for the Follow Me because you want to pull in that Stomping Tantrum. That would be the most obvious thing, but Antonio, knowing his calculations, very well known that the Dondozo's solo health, even an Earthquake, when it has been weakened with the Life Orb boost that you've got on there, would be enough to pick it up. And now that Clefable in a really awkward position. We know the Rillaboom's in the back for Flavio, but what else do they have to take advantage of? And are they enough to get rid of these two Pokemon? The Dragonite hasn't taken any damage so far in this match, Jamie.
Yeah, that means it still has its multi-scale intact as well. And if you want to break it with the Rillaboom, well, that just allows Garchomp to just go for any attack to KO the Clefable here. Assumingly, it would be that Stomping Tantrum to be able to pick up the KO. It could also go for a Protect this turn, and that would allow a tiny bit more Grassy Terrain recovery, which would put it outside of Life Orb recoil as well, but would probably still be in range of the Grassy Glide. The Dragonite's just still not threatened here, though. It's still able to knock out the Clefable with the Terra Blast, or even Extreme Speed at this point. And Terra Blast with the, into the Rillaboom would also be able to pick up the one-hit knockout. So do you just KO the Garchomp, but then now the Dragonite's able to do what it wants? Do you go for the Fake Out into the Dragonite to stop that Terra Blast? But then Garchomp can do whatever it wants. So it seems like Antonio is absolutely in the driving seat here.
Well, you wanted to see that Sneasler, Jamie, and here it is. It is making its way onto the field, kept in the back, getting that Grassy Seed activated under the Grassy Terrain, getting a defense boost, and activating that Unburden ability as well, which will put it faster than everything else on the field right now. We are just seeing the double protect from Antonio to get around the threat of the Fake Out, not wanting to take any unnecessary risks in this turn, as that Fake Out coming out into the Dragonite here to try and potentially break the multi-scale as well, which is still intact on that Dragonite.
Yeah, and you can now just safely go for the Grassy Glide KO into that opposing Garchomp, and the Sneasler would be in a pretty good position here. If it can spread some Dire Claw statuses, that would be lovely, but that's exactly what the Lumberry is for on the Dragonite. You can go for the Dire Claw, and yes, you might get one of the statuses, but no, you won't, because then the Lumberry will be activated, and then here's a follow-up Terra Blast, and there's not really much that Flavio can do. Rillaboom doesn't threaten Dragonite in the slightest. It has to be the Sneasler, and his best move is going to be the Dire Claw coming out here. The Terrastallization's already been used on that Dondozo going for Steel. You can't go for the Terra Stella Acrobatics anymore, so Dire Claw would be nice. Yes, the Garchomp is now taken care of thanks to that Grassy Glide, and you get a little bit of Rough Skin recoil on that Rillaboom as well. But even if you go for the Dire Claw, which would be your way out in this case, no, you don't have a way out because there is that Lumberry.
Well, here's that Dire Claw into the Dragonite. Does it get the status condition? It does not, and we are going to see in return a Terra Blast fired into that Sneasler. Has had the defense boost, but not going to be enough to take this powerful Terra Blast from the Dragonite, taking a key element from Flavio's team down.
It seemed like Antonio had pinned Flavio there pretty nicely. The Dragonite's just it just wasn't threatened. That Dire Claw, it did okay damage through the multi-scale, but now what are you going to do to break through this Dragonite now? Assumingly, like the King Gambit or the Ninetales is waiting in the back. Yes, there is the Ninetales. You can just go for a Blizzard, you can go for a Terra Blast, and that is going to be the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, so well managed from Antonio, but just not enough in the tank from Flavio, especially with that Dondozo. You feel like you just didn't get the value out of it when you got that curse up. Positioned the Clefable well, but just weren't able to get the damage required off. And this Dragonite has sat pretty healthy predominantly most of this game and really picking out most of the knockouts up from Flavio's side of the field. Clefable now in a situation where it is threatened, and we are going to see the forfeit locked in, and Antonio Sanchez taking round 3 here in the Dortmund Regional Championships.
Really, really nicely played from Antonio as well. It seemed like the consistent choice beats the anti-meta here. The Dondozo was really cool. I think it was a really cool tech. The main
is peeled on Alex.
Yeah, Alex has got to be the standout element. I think the key thing here is that there is that weather war in that Pelipper and the Torkoal, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. So they're not going to be led with either Pokemon here. It is going to be, for Alex, a classic lead of Annihilate and also Trick Room Setter in that Hatterene, but facing down that Archaludon and Amoonguss.
Most notably, the Amoonguss has too much health for Final Gambit to be able to knock it out in one by only a few hit points. So the Amoonguss is kind of safe in this situation, but Archaludon definitely isn't. I suppose the question for Yoel is whether he's willing to have the Amoonguss go down to such low hit points to take a Final Gambit redirected away from Archaludon with a Rage Powder, or if he needs it for later in the game to be a little bit higher HP so he can redirect things like the Ursaluna in the back that only has moves that target down one slot at a time.
Yeah, here comes the Rage Powder from the Amoonguss so that it can keep that Archaludon safe from any close combats or Final Gambits. It does look like it is the Final Gambit into that opposing Amoonguss, but as we said, Amoonguss has a much higher base HP than Annihilate, is able to survive. Very low, but is able to survive. But Archaludon doesn't have Flash Cannon here. Snarl is still very nice. It's going to be able to reduce the special attack of that Hatterene, but Flash Cannon would have been able to threaten some very good damage here. But yeah, there goes that Trick Room that Alex does love to click.
All in all, I think I prefer the Snarl in this situation.
Yeah.
If you do damage to the Hatterene and you don't knock it out, then you've got to deal with it at full power, whereas the Snarl kind of gives you a little bit of breathing room that you really need, especially now that you've got 4 turns of Trick Room to be able to go through. Now, usually Amoonguss in Trick Room is one of the slowest potential Pokemon on on both sides of the field, but Hatterene sits just below it, and it's able to launch out powerful expanding forces before the Amoonguss is going to be able to go for anything like a Spore. So that's something that Yoel's going to have to play around if he wants to position himself well in that game. You don't have to worry about it as much because of the Snarl, but with the Indeedee setting up the Psychic Terrain, no Rillaboom in sight to overwrite it, it's definitely on Yoel to be able to reposition and get his Pokemon into a spot where they can actually pressure things back.
Like the fact that Alex brought the Indeedee in here, yes, the expanding force is now at full power, but you're not actually really threatening this Archaludon much at all. It's been
true.
You've got a Snarl on the Hatterene. Dazzling Gleam won't do too much now. Expanding Force is resisted. It's a very, very easy play to just go for a Protect on the Amoonguss, because that would easily be KO'd, and then the Archaludon wouldn't be threatened too much here. But yeah, Hatterene is just keeping itself safe here with a Protect in the face of the Amoonguss also going for that Protect.
Yeah, I like that. Protect when your opponent is going to protect, and then just take a full advantage of it. But there's a Psychic coming out from the Indeedee. The Indeedee is not the attacker of choice on this dedicated Trick Room team. It doesn't do really any damage to this Assault Vest Archaludon, and you can just see how much the Snarl is going to make an impact here, dropping now the Indeedee special attack even further. Almost no damage coming out from Alex's side of the field. And yeah, you called it, Jamie. The Archaludon is sitting there nice and happy. Really, Alex needs to get that Ursaluna in on the board as quickly as possible.
Yeah, assuming it is going to be the Ursaluna. If you brought Torkoal in the face of a Pelipper, that's not going to have a good time. So yeah, it's just really not threatening the damage here. And that was another turn of Trick Room stalled out with the Hatterene going for the Protect. Yes, you did catch the Amoonguss going for Protect, and now you can pretty safely go for an Expanding Force for the KO. But we saw how much the Psychic did in the Archaludon. Yes, the Expanding Force will be a bit stronger, but it's really not going to be much damage at all.
Amoonguss getting some health back with its Regenerator ability, leaving the field in favor of Pelipper to come in and take those attacks, get the rain set up, maybe get that Archaladon going, get the electro shots going so that it can do a little bit more damage than the Snarl is doing at the moment. Helping hand, expanding force, not enough to even take that Pelipper down to its focus sash with the Snarl drop that it had before, and a body press there with Archaladon taking advantage of the defense boost that it just received from the expanding force.
Yeah, choosing not to go for another Snarl there. That could have put the Hatterene at -2, and then it would have really not done much damage at all. The Dazzling Gleam coming out from the Hatterene there, not able to pick up the knockout on the Pelipper because expanding force would have definitely brought it down to its focus sash. But Archaladon is still it's been chipped. It's down to half.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so you're doing some good damage, but this is the final turn of Trick Room, so you should be able to survive with both of your Pokemon here. You can pretty safely go for the Protect on the Pelipper. There's no White Guards, which is a saving grace for Alex, so you can pretty safely attack with the Hatterene on this final turn, but this is the final turn of Trick Room. There's no reason for that Pelipper not to Protect.
Yeah, Pelipper just making sure that it's not taking any damage. Snarl coming out. Is it going to be a double Trick Room here to reset those Trick Rooms? Give Alex a little bit more time under those conditions. Indeed, he didn't get knocked out by this Snarl. Here it is, first Trick Room coming out from the Hatterene. Are we going to see the second one? I assume we are here. Yep, there we go. Trick Room going off and coming back online again. No longer one turn of Trick Room remaining, all 4 instead.
Yeah, I said no reason to not Protect there. There's a huge reason.
Yeah, a big old reason.
Massive reason not to Protect there, because if that Pelipper would have just attacked, that's a KO, and it's just a reversal of Trick Room and then not a resetting of Trick Room. So that would have put Yoel pretty much in the driving seat and would have almost certainly taken this game. But now there are 4 turns of Trick Room remaining rather than 0. This does give Alex a chance back into the game. You still have to break through this Archaladon somehow. It's gone for a Snarl on that double Trick Room, so the Hatterene and Indeedee, they're not doing damage now, but at least you do still have the Trick Room.
They are doing damage to the Pelipper enough to be able to knock it out, and the Amoonguss in the back is not safe either. Hatterene, I think, probably heard you. And now the Torkoal's coming in. What a great switch up here. Taking away the Archaladon's ability to go for Electro Shot, taking away the Pelipper's Weather Ball going for a Water type, but Pelipper heard the Torkoal coming for. Do you know what? I need to just take a break, guys. Amoonguss coming back in, taking a Psychic for its troubles, and not enough. The Snarls were enough to make sure that the Amoonguss wasn't getting KO'd. Yoel not falling for it and going for a body press instead of locking the Archaladon into an Electro Shot.
Yeah, and I think going for the Snarl there would have actually been not ideal for Yoel, because you would have KO'd the Indeedee and you'd have got that switch in to the Hatterene that would no longer be Snarl. And here are some actually pretty strong expanding forces now. But the very key thing there was that the Pelipper was switched out that turn as the Torkoal switched in. So at any point, you can bring in the Pelipper, overwrite that Sun, and it shouldn't be able to pick up the knockout on that Archaladon.
Probably not.
Like, it's taking the body press chip damage, so the Eruption's not going to do it now. The alternative is Weather Ball, and if the Pelipper switches in, then suddenly the Weather Ball is a Water type attack, so that also will not do much damage to that opposing Archaladon.
Indeedee switching out here, and I really like that because the Psychic terrain is not looking long to be left on the field. Hatterene switching in its favor with its Magic Bounce ability. It would be able to bounce back a Spore, and yeah, the Spore coming out here into that Magic Bounce. Hatterene is going to go right back to the Amoonguss, which is not going to be affected because, of course, it is a Grass type, and what looked like another Snarl coming out here. So a great call there for Yoel, just making sure, even though that Hatterene reset those drops from before, it's kind of got them back again.
Yeah, and now with that -1 on the Hatterene, and well, is that going to be in range of Dazzling Gleam into Eruption or Weather Ball? I'm not sure it will be, because it's taken a lot of damage reduction with just even a -1. I've already mentioned the Torkoal. It's not that healthy, so it looks like it does want to be switching out here. This is to allow the expanding force to do some really good damage from the Hatterene.
Indeedee coming in, getting that Psychic terrain back on the board so that Hatterene's expanding force is back to full power, but it's not going to be an expanding force, just a Dazzling Gleam. I think trying to cover all of the scenarios there. Taking the knockout on Amoonguss, that's a big piece of the puzzle that Alex has now removed from the board, but this Archaladon is going to be able to get yet another Snarl off. The Indeedee goes down, the Hatterene goes to -2 special attack. There's going to be no more Psychic terrain after it's gone now, so there's a timer on Trick Room and there's a timer on the expanding force.
Yeah, there is for sure. And this is actually a situation where you can just immediately bring in your Pelipper, because as the Torkoal and the Pelipper come in, Torkoal will be the slowest, and Trick Room's active, so it'll activate the Drought first, and then the Pelipper would have overwritten it. Yes, the Drought's already on the field, so this could have been an opportunity for Pelipper immediately, but no, Torkoal's going to be coming in. Pelipper can come in when it wants to be able to overwrite that Sun.
You've got to be kind of thinking about how you're going to be getting out of Trick Room here if you're Yoel. The Gallade coming in does have the ability to protect, but doesn't have the ability to wide guard. You called that out earlier, Jamie, and that's going to be a really big deal for this game. Gallade came in wide guard right now. It would be able to just use it until the end of Trick Room and not really worry too much about what was on the board. But Yoel has to be careful here. You know, you can turn off the Torkoal's Eruption doing lots and lots of damage. And is that a forfeit?
It looks like it was a forfeit there. The Pelipper being able to overwrite, Yoel was in control of that first game after losing the Annihilate, just being able to spam Snarl here. But it is a switch up from Alex, going with that Indeedee and Hatterene, but still a mix-up coming out from Yoel as well. That's a Gallade led next to the Archelodon this time.
Yeah, and that's going to be quite interesting to see how that really shakes up. I'm just having a little look behind the scenes at this Gallade, because yeah, it does have the opportunity to go for Trick Room. So there's opportunity for 1, 2, 3, or 0 Trick Rooms to go up this turn, and depending on how whether it's an odd or even number will depend on whether or not we're going to be ending up in Trick Room this turn. But if not, the Gallade is now boosted up by the Psychic terrain. Its Psycho Cut's going to be doing lots of damage, even though both of the Pokemon on Alex's side do resist it. They're still going to be probably doing enough. And of course, you do have the pressure of Snarl going up here. But here it is. Ursaluna's on the board. Yeah,
Ursaluna won't care about any Snarls here and is not taking any kind of damage from the Gallade on the switch in, as Gallade is going to be protecting here. Yeah, there's the Snarl coming out. Ursaluna does not mind that in the slightest. And indeed, he could very easily just be setting that Trick Room up, ready for that Ursaluna.
There we go.
There it is. And immediately, that Ursaluna is online, because as you said, it switched in on this turn. It's ending the turn on the field, and there is that Flame Orb.
Jamie, I want to switch perspectives right now, because I do not want to be staring down that Ursaluna with its Flame Orb activated, its Guts boost in play. The Headlong Rush, the Facade are going to be boosted up to their full power, and there's no redirect on the board right now. If the Amoonguss, which we can see that it's in the back, comes in, it's not going to be able to spore against the Ursaluna because it's burnt. And there's no Intimidates on your side of the field. There's no power control. There's no way to stop this Ursaluna just taking knockout after knockout after knockout. And of course, the Indeedee as well. If that wasn't enough, it's got Helping Hand too.
Yeah, for sure. It's good. Like, Ursaluna will one-hit knock out every single Pokemon, basically. Maybe not the Amoonguss, but Amoonguss might be able to survive. And you could switch in the Pelipper on one of the ground-type attacks coming out from the Ursaluna as well, potentially. But yeah, the Gallade did go for Protect last turn. There's the Facade. That was probably KOing 2 Gallades. Ursaluna's so strong, easily able to pick up that one-hit knockout. Archelodon is able to respond back with a Draco Meteor here, and that was some good damage into that opposing Ursaluna. But it's still looking reasonably healthy and would be able to fire off another really powerful attack.
The Hatterene coming in here is big, though, because the Pelipper, we know, doesn't have Wide Guard. The Amoonguss comes in, unless it goes for its Terra type, and its Terra type is Water, it would probably be knocked out quite easily by a Expanding Force. So in order to protect the Archelodon from any damage from the Ursaluna, you have to Terra Redirect with Amoonguss. Instead, Yoel is opting to go a little bit more on the offensive, bring the Pelipper in, get that weather set up, kind of assume that Alex has opted out of the weather wall and try to put on pressure with just a weather ball instead, and take advantage of the focus sash that it's holding.
Yeah, you should be able to get off one attack into that Ursaluna, but the Draco Meteor did about that much, maybe a tiny bit more into the Ursaluna, and now you're on -2 stages of special attacks, so that's probably not quite enough to KO the Ursaluna. So if you double into the Pelipper with Expanding Force and Facade, that would easily KO, and then you're probably surviving. If you attack the Archelodon with a Headlong Rush, now the Pelipper's on the field, that's also going to be a KO, but maybe forcing that defensive Terror coming out from the Archelodon so it can survive. But no defensive Terrors here at all. It is just that Expanding Force, no Protect from the Pelipper. It's absolutely brought down to its Focus Sash. Which Pokemon is the Ursaluna going to KO? It can KO either Pokemon it wants to. Maybe it's got its defense boost on.
I think it's still going.
It's still going down if it's Hello. Yeah, it's still going down. Yeah.
And there it is. The Archaludon goes down. I was getting really excited when the Pelipper went down to 1. I was thinking, yeah, it's going to be a lot. Oh, yeah, it's got Focus Sash there. Archaludon going back to its trainer. And this Ursaluna is doing so much work. Yoel choosing to target instead of the Ursaluna, the Hatterene, maybe reading into that Ursaluna playing a little bit defensively, and the Hatterene just trying to chip away the Focus Sash, trying to do that last little bit of damage. But instead, Amoonguss has to come into the field, and yeah, this is probably one of the least happy places that Amoonguss has been. The Pelipper's going down to Expanding Force or a Dazzling Gleam, and of course, the Facade will easily be enough to pick up the knockout onto the Amoonguss. But the Amoonguss, yeah, it doesn't even have the grass-type coverage that some of them do to be able to do damage into the Ursaluna. Instead, opting for Clear Smog, which is not very effective, and Ursaluna is probably going to be able to survive that hit.
And it would also appreciate it because it would get rid of the Headlong Rush defense drops as well. So Amoonguss is not very helpful here. It is forced into its defensive terrestrialization, so it is at least neutral from the Expanding Force that is almost certainly coming out from this Hatterene. Pelipper going to protect itself. No access to White Guard. White Guard would have been great here to stop the Expanding Force. It would have just shut down that Hatterene completely, but no, has to protect instead, which means that this Expanding Force is going to be hitting into this Amoonguss. Yes, it is now neutral. That's still loads. That's still a lot of damage, and absolutely in range of any attack that the Ursaluna wants to go for. There's the Spore. Doesn't particularly matter. You can't Spore the Ursaluna because it's already burnt. There's the Facade, easily picking up the KO. Yes, you do take some Rocky Helmet on the way out, but you've got a 1 HP Pelipper against now 3 Pokemon from Alex. I think this is going to a game 3.
That's definitely a silver lining kind of moment there, where even the burn is not enough to pick up the KO on the Ursaluna. So 4 Pokemon against Pelipper. Pelipper can only target 1 Pokemon at a time, and yeah, I think the writing's on the wall for Yoel. So we are, as you say, Jamie, going to our game 3 here, and yeah, just that last Expanding Force into the Pelipper, doing that requisite 1 HP damage, and the Pelipper going back to Yoel.
Yeah, that Ursaluna adjustment for Alex was very, very impactful here. Able to pick up so many. There are always going to be these mind games going into here, but Indeedee Annihilate, this is the classic from Alex. He led this so much in Regulation E and has now switched it up to that Annihilate and the Indeedee.
Well, there's a switch up as well for Yoel, bringing the Tsarina in as well next to Archaludon, and I do think this Tsarina is answering the question of, 1, how do I do damage, but 2, in this spot, it does offer the taunt, and that's something that Alex is going to have to be really paying attention to. It almost locks the final Gambit targeting into that Tsarina, but it can protect itself.
Yeah.
And so you've got to play this kind of game. It's like, well, if I don't go for the taunt, then the Indeedee's almost certainly going to be setting up Trick Room this turn. If I do go for the taunt, I'm risking the final Gambit play, and Trick Room's still probably going up in that scenario. So I do think the safest play is to try to protect, do a little bit of damage to that Annihilate, and force Alex to choose a little bit more.
Oh, he didn't go for the Tsarina, though. He has KO'd that Archaludon on turn 1. And the Tsarina, we've already got a sneak preview of what's going to happen here. Fantastic play from Alex, because here comes the taunt to stop Trick Room. But no, here comes the Magic Bounce to taunt your taunt. You can no longer taunt
that's so good.
Fantastic.
That is so good.
Coming out from Alex. It made so much sense to, well, final Gambit, I'll stop the taunt, and here's Trick Room. Like, I'll accept that
obviously.
Yeah, again, like we said, there's no obvious play coming out here, and Alex is just a master of this hard Trick Room, being able to read that turn absolutely perfectly. Yes, the Tsarina can still do good damage with Power Whip now, but you can't taunt that Indeedee to stop Trick Room anymore, and you can't protect. It's definitely going to be taking maybe some damage from the Hatterene. Are you strong enough to be able to KO the Pelipper and, with the Pelipper and Tsarina into the Indeedee? Because if you are, you can at least force the Follow Me into the Trick Room. But yeah,
but then the Indeedee goes down, and you've got another Trick Room attacker coming back.
Yeah, so that would be perfectly fine.
Yeah, if Torkoal's in the back, which it could be.
It could be.
With that targeting as well, if the Archaludon is the key threat that Alex wanted to remove from play, then yeah, maybe it's not the Ursaluna in the back. Maybe there's another adaptation here. We'll have to see, as the Pelipper is going for its Terra Stella in this game. I think Is this the first Terror we've seen in this match?
I think it might have been, actually, yeah. That's very uncommon in these regulations, yeah. Going for Terra Stella, like the combination, like it's follow me. It's a follow me in Trick Room, of course it is. That's a very classic thing.
Absolutely.
But Pelipper going for its Terra Stella, this will KO. This combination of now Terra Stella boosted, weather ball into Ndidi, and also power, this will KO Ndidi. That did so much more than I expected.
Well, I mean, if that had picked up the KO, this power whip would have gone into the battery.
That was close, yeah.
That was very, very close there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Ndidi goes down, power whip hits its mark. I know you're always happy to see those inaccurate moves actually connecting with their targets. Trick Room, of course, is going up, and then we will see how Alex has prepared for this matchup. The last two Pokemon that Alex has available are indeed Ursaluna and Hatterene. Hatterene.
Yeah, so the saving grace here is that the Ursaluna doesn't have its Flame Orb on this one turn, but actually still the taunt, the Magic Bounce taunt is coming into play here. You can't protect to stall out one of the turns. So that slot is taking damage. That Expanding Force might be enough to KO Serena. Like, Serena's got reasonable bulk, but it's taken some chip. So I reckon it survives from full HP, but that little bit of chip, it might be enough to put it in range of Expanding Force. And if that's the case, Serena goes down, and if you switch in a Pokemon, well, you're not going to be able to take an Expanding Force very comfortably. Your only resist is gone now. The Archarodon was KO'd on turn 1, so nothing wants to switch into this Expanding Force. So yes, even though the Ursaluna, it's not burned at the moment, the combination of Facade and Expanding Force will KO the Pelipper, and it might still be strong enough to KO this Serena here. Yes, here is the Expanding Force, and Serena, there it goes. It's gone.
It's gone.
Doesn't matter about the Flame Orb. 1 HP, you can do that much damage without a burn.
I think he's going to manage it, just as long as he's clicked Facade instead of Headlong Rush. That's the only way that this could have gone wrong for Alex here. Here it is, the Facade into Pelipper, 2 knockouts on this turn. Yoel with only 1 Pokemon in the back. We've seen a preview of it, and I'm sure in just a moment Alex will be very happy to see that the last Pokemon that Yoel has available to him in this match is, of course, that Amoonguss, which only has Clear Smog as a damaging move. It's not going to cut it, Jamie.
It's not, no.
It's not.
No. Like, normally you bring Amoonguss to be able to counter Trick Room. Not in this case.
This is high-level analysis here. It's like, no.
No. Game over. Alex wins round 4. Poor Amoonguss.
And that Tyranitar, which is running that Assault Vest tween at the moment in the format, so that could play a big part in this game.
Well, Grimmsnarl and Porygon 2 going to come out right away, trainers. Perhaps not the most offensive lead, but it's certainly one that is going to be causing some problems for Michelle here. You got Magmar and the Dragapult on the field. Michelle, of course, wants to hit hard and fast, but when you've got the screens and you've got something as bulky as Porygon 2 with the Eviolite, going to be tricky.
Yeah, Matteo in a really good position here to just get that Reflector turn 1. It's going to give the Porygon 2 a little bit more of a buffer. It's already going to be able to take those big, powerful Dragon-type attacks. And do you lock into the Outrage here? Because if you do, it's kind of risky in this position. Maybe you want to reposition that Dragapult, but we're not seeing it here. You're seeing that Grimmsnarl get that Reflect set up.
There is Reflect and Dragapult. We could say at this point, partner Pokemon, and Michelle loves to run a Dragapult in the taunts we've seen him in. Going for the U-turn, pivoting around to reveal one of the Pokemon in the back. We have the privileged position of being able to see what is lurking in the back for Michelle here. And yeah, I mean, we've got a nice little Firewater Grass core there. And coming into this situation, looking like it might be the Primarina joining the field. That's going to be threatening the Grimmsnarl for super effective damage with its Fairy type moves.
Yeah, and it's I think out of the two, there were options there. The Primarina had to be the choice there. It comes in, it can start threatening the Grimmsnarl on Matthew's side of the field. Start getting rid of that, because the longer that stays around in the field, the more disruptive it will be. And it's also got access to that Spirit Break as well, so you kind of want to remove it to prevent those special attack drops on your side as soon as possible. Porygon 2, of course, getting the Trick Room set up there, so now in a position where it's favorable in the speed tiering.
Exactly, Porygon 2 going to be going before some of the faster Pokemon, because that is exactly what Trick Room does, reverses the speed order here, and it's going to be Porygon 2 now switching. It's done its duty, it's twisted the dimensions, coming out instead. Here comes Ursaluna, really nice switch here, because at the end of this turn, it will get the burn from the Flame Orb. We don't have to stall a turn by protecting, but let's see what the Primarina can achieve. Going for a super effective Hyper Voice. Good thing that light screen was set up by the Grimmsnarl, mitigating the damage, but there is the burn. So all that's going to do is going to be boosting the attack of the Ursaluna ever so slightly faster. Flame Orb doesn't need to activate now. It's got that boost to its Guts ability. Guts, of course, boosted by any kind of status condition, and the burn is not going to be halving the attack, Quite the opposite. It's going to be doing even more damage with its ground and facade moves.
Yeah, that's it. And I think you played it so well, Matteo, here, but also covering bases as well. If Michelle, you've got that Primarina into a nice position where it can threaten the Ursaluna. You've just got to utilize that Magmar this turn and make sure that you do remove the Ursaluna from the field if you can. If you are going to sacrifice your Magmar, you are going to pull in using that follow me. You have to be careful about doing that though, because the Grimmsnarl, although has switched out, did have access to that taunt, which it could fire into that slot and shut it down.
Well, Porygon 2 going to be rejoining the fray instead here as the Grimmsnarl switches out, and Primarina deciding that it doesn't like the face of this big scary bear on the field right now. Magmar also protecting, so Michelle just angling to stall out some turns of Trick Room here. It only lasts for a few turns, then it will expire, and then Michelle will be out acting faster again outside of the Trick Room reverse speed orders environment. And of course, the Ursaluna not protected from its burn that is ever whittling away at its health.
Yeah, and the problem is with it as well, you kind of in this situation, you want to probably, like you do want to go for the facade, but doing that, you're probably just going to get redirected, and it could be into that Magmar. And as we are kind of seeing the potential there is the option to go for the terrestrialization on the Magmar into that ghost type. If it does and it pulls in the facade,
yeah,
it's going to be immune, so that you'll get no utility out of the Ursaluna this turn. And you want to go for the Earthquake, but it's conflicting because you've got nothing on your side of the field that can resist that. So you're going to take damage whatever you do, whatever you lock into, and do you kind of take the risk? We are going to get into it though. We look like we're seeing a terrestrialization.
Yeah, that is going to be Magmar going all spooky, taking a walk on the ghostly side, becoming a ghost type. The Porygon 2 over on Matteo's end also has access to Terra Blast. We do see Porygon 2 sometimes going for the Bear Terra Blast out of terrestrializing, because Porygon 2 can deal a significant amount of damage with that move, but because it's a ghost type, will not be affecting it. But instead, it's a big old Earthquake with a critical hit onto the Magmar to boot. Primarina able to have a little bit of a snack here, getting ready to perform its Aria coming up later in the turn. And of course, damaging his own Porygon 2 there as well. But yes, that was the Terra Blast coming out, redirected into the Magmar, being a ghost type, not going to be taking any damage. And now that Ursaluna is just one burn away, it looks like, from going down.
Yeah, but a really nice play there from Matteo saying, okay, well, if I commit to this facade, we talked about it, I could get punished for it. And exactly what would have happened in that situation after the terrestrialization from Michelle. Going for the Earthquake, you do get some damage onto the Porygon 2, but you can see the value in that light screen from earlier on from that Grimmsnarl, able to take those Hyper Voices from the Primarina so comfortably. Like you say, it's going to get one more turn out, but do we just see the double protect on Michelle's side just to stall that out so the Ursaluna goes down? Maybe it opens a little bit of a window for Matteo to do something else, switch it out, maybe save it for later, or just go on the attack and maybe trying to catch something as we're seeing a switch in here.
That ghostly Magmar vanishes from the field as Rillaboom is switched in just in time, ready to provide a fake out on the next turn. There's Primarina going for the protect as well, and of course if you're the Porygon 2, you can just recover all of that HP back, having taken damage from the Earthquake. But here comes another Earthquake being fired off, and of course Rillaboom going to be mitigating that damage thanks to the grassy terrain. A critical hit on the own Porygon 2 there from Matteo, but there is that recover coming back out. This Rubber Duck is now looking all squeaky and new with a lot more HP to its name as well. However, the grassy terrain here is going to make sure that the Ursaluna is out of range of being knocked out by its own burn.
Yeah, that's the one drawback here. You think, okay, I'm going to bring the grassy terrain in to weaken the Earthquake, but at the same time, you kind of allow that Ursaluna at least one more turn. And now the Ghost type isn't on the field in the Magmar, and you can lock into that facade, but you've got to get around this next turn of fake out that's active from the Rillaboom. Easy able to go into that slot and just take it down. If you are Matteo, maybe at this stage you just say, okay, I'm going to allow that to go down. I'm going to get some utility out of my Porygon 2, try and get some good damage onto either the Rillaboom or that Primarina.
Porygon 2, from its download ability, got a boost to its physical attack there. What you really want to see is the special attack boost, then it becomes a real offensive threat. Fake out coming out into the Porygon 2, not allowing it to set up Trick Room this turn, as the Primarina is able to go for another Hyper Voice, serenading the Pokemon on the field, but just look at how little damage the Porygon 2 takes from that. For now, Michelle going to be wanting to target down this Porygon 2, trying to remove it from the field before the dimensions get all twisted again.
Yeah, really nice play there from Michelle, going for the fake out into that Porygon 2, kind of saying, okay, I know you're going to protect the Ursaluna because of the threat, but you're in that similar situation this next turn, regardless if a Trick Room is up or not. You've got the Grassy Gry that's going to threaten and pick up a knockout there, but it does take away all the attention from the Rillaboom, so doing a a job in that sort of respect, where the Porygon 2 is less threatened going into this next turn.
Wood Hammer, big hammer connecting down on that Porygon 2, boosted by the grassy terrain. The Reflect working wonders here, and the Hyper Voice also not going to be enough. The Porygon 2 very low health, but that is okay. The Ursaluna going down here finally took enough damage. The Ursaluna that was so threatening on the field, but it doesn't go to the Trick Room. It's just a big Ice Beam into the Rillaboom. It does not get the freeze, thankfully, for Michelle. Interesting here. So the Porygon 2 could have set up Trick Room. It depends on the final Pokemon in the back for Matteo. Maybe Trick Room is not the favored environment for that Pokemon. And once again, the Porygon 2 can just recover it all away. And that's going to be the Volcarona joining the field here.
Yeah, and this is a Pokemon that really doesn't enjoy Trick Room too much, depending on what it's got access to, of course. But it does, in this scenario, have that Struggle Bug, which is going to hit the Rillaboom for super effective damage, and then weaken that Primarina as well. You've still got to consider that you've got to keep things as healthy as possible, you know, especially with the Porygon 2. I think it's quite pivotal for that Dragapult in the end game, where we know that is still in the back. The Magmar's low health at this stage, but it's about getting rid of the threats on the field right now. That Rillaboom is threatened quite heavily here from the Volcarona, and we're going to see the second Terastallization, this time from Matteo's side of the field.
Finally time for this Volcarona to get sparkly right now for Matteo. It's become a Dragon type from Moth. Getting all Draconian right now as this Volcarona lets out its victory cry on the field. Here comes a big overheat connecting down into the Rillaboom. Of course it's going to be enough for the knockout here, but at the cost of special attack to this Volcarona, reducing the move after being used. And now all eyes coming down to this Primarina. Another Hyper Voice coming out, resisted by the Volcarona, where once it was super effective, and there we go, this Porygon 2 is just left once more to be able to recover. This Porygon 2 is very quickly becoming the Rubber Duck Thorn in Michelle's side.
Yeah, definitely, and just because it's so hard to take down and you don't really have a good way to deal the damage that you need to get rid of it quickly and effectively, we are going to see the Dragapult come in, and that's maybe something that you could combine with the Primarina. The one thing that you would say about that Volcarona now, it has taken a -2 special attack drop from that overheat, so it has to switch out, but you've got a pretty free switch into the Grimmsnarl in the back, and even if it does go down, it's not the worst thing in the world. And it's also got that Fairy typing, so it has the immunity to the Dragon type as well. So in a nice position, Michelle's got a little bit of work to do, has got some offensive threats on the field right now. The Volcarona in a little bit of a position where you want to maybe switch it out just so you can get more utility in the later game. But the Porygon 2, like you say, maybe you try and get that Trick Room up, because if you can, you're in a way more favorable position.
Dragapult going to be absolutely key for Michelle heading into this late game. It's really the only Pokemon right now for him that can deal significant enough damage, especially to the Porygon 2. Here comes the Dragon Darts into the Porygon 2, both of them redirected, because of course Grimmsnarl is a Fairy type, wouldn't be taking any damage there. Big Moonblast into the Grimmsnarl, but the Grimmsnarl hangs on here, and that's an Ice Beam connecting into the Dragapult. It's got to fear that Porygon 2. Are we going to see a freeze? No, we're not, fortunately. Just going to be that grassy terrain recovery. So really, Porygon 2 and Dragapult threatening each other mightily right now.
Yeah, now the problem is Michelle has locked into that Dragon Dart.
Yeah.
So if you need to, before this Volcarona comes onto the field, you need to remove the Dragapult, because the Dragapult will be able to pick up a knockout quite easily against that Volcarona. The problem is you're so low health. I think there the Porygon 2 would have been better going for the Trick Room than going for the Recover the next turn and allowing the Grimmsnarl to maybe get an attack off like the Spirit Break into the Dragapult this turn, and then you can try and deal with the Primarina. It's still a big threat, because Terastallizing into the Dragon type, you're susceptible to those Fairy type attacks that the Primarina's got access to as well. Really difficult to make a decision, but coming right down to the wire here.
Yeah, well, it's going to be another Dragon Dance. It's finally going to be enough for this Rubber Duck to be out of the bath and back into the Pokeball. That's Porygon 2 down. Just the Grimmsnarl and the Volcarona left here. And now that Terra Dragon on the Volcarona may well come back to bite it in the face of this Dragapult hanging on. I think this is exactly what Michelle likes to do. It kind of looks dicey for him, but then he finds a way to navigate the Trick Room, has enough HP remaining on his Pokemon to pivot around and get back in the position that he loves to be in. Of course, you've got the Magmar in the back. It can still deal significant damage with Overheat in other matchups. When you've just got a Terra Dragon Volcarona, all you need is the Dragon Dance.
Yeah, and I mean, even if one of these threats on Michelle's side goes down, you've got that Magmar to bring in, redirect.
Oh my goodness.
But we're not going to need it. Dragon Darts, more than enough, boosted by that Choice Band for Michelle to take game one.
Dragapult firing off its trusty little Dreepies from its side cannons into that Volcarona. Michelle played absolutely phenomenally there. It just
maybe lean on something a little bit more like the Annihilate, which could change things up.
Well, it's going to be Paldean champion Annihilate joining the field alongside the Volcarona, but another switch up too. Sneasler and Dragapult. Sneasler, the Pokemon that with its Dark Claw move could make another Pokemon have a nap, have a poison, or have a paralysis on the field.
Yeah, the Annihilape's a great Pokemon to come in against it. It doesn't have to worry about that fake out, of course, and the Dire Claw not going to be doing super effective damage. You do, on the other hand, have to worry about this Dragapult, because we have seen how devastatingly strong this Pokemon can be if it's not kept in check because of that Choice Bind item and the potential threat of that Outrage as well.
Well, an immediate turn 1 Terrestrialization here in game 2, and it's going to be targeted down into the Dragapult once more. Well, for Mikhail right now, going into that Terra Dragon, so going all in on the offense right now. The Dragon Dart's going to be dealing even more damage with the Choice Band, with the Terra Dragon. Of course, that is how Terrestrialization works. You get an extra boost if it's of the same type. Oh my goodness. Volcarona down to only about a third of its HP. Annihilate the same, but you do give it a little stack to its Rage Fist. Here comes the Dark Claw, just enough to knock out the Volcarona. Don't need to worry about the status.
No, not at all. You don't need it there if you're boosting that Dragon Darts with that Terrestrialization. The Annihilate does get the bulk up off, which is great, but you've taken so much damage in the process, which might be a little too much for you to get, you know, the utility, the use out of it going forward in this match. This Sneasler and that Dragapult so oppressive as a lead. And, you know, the Porygon 2 coming in now, it's in a great position, but you've got to worry about that close combat now that really threatens you. And do you go into that fighting type? It's not going to be much benefit against the Dragapult. It's not going to give you any sort of support either here. And are you in the position where you can protect with the Annihilate and then you can get that Trick Room up? Because I think if you can do that, if you are Matteo, you're in a much better position to then start threatening the Dragapult with potentially the Rage Fist there and picking up the damage, or a Drain Punch into it to try and recover some health. But you've still got to worry about the Pokemon sitting next to it, the Sneasler, which is threatening your Porygon 2 every turn this match.
Well, Porygon 2 now going to become overall fighting of its own. It's got its fist on its head, ready to go, and it's going to be training in the dojo alongside its partner fighting type, Annihilate. And here comes another big Dragon Dart down into Porygon 2. Really good damage into that bulky Pokemon. How is the Annihilate going to take this? It is going to hang on thanks to that bulk up defense boost on the previous turn. And it's going to be close combat into the Porygon 2. So the Annihilate is left free reign right now. It's got 2 boosts to its Rage Fist. And that's going to be the defense drop coming out on the Sneasler. Big Drain Punch coming out into the Dragapult. It's no longer immune to that because it's terrestrialized into a pure Dragon type. Annihilate gets a nice little bit of recovery. Michelle's going to be a little bit careful here as the Trick Room goes up, and he's got 2 of the fastest possible Pokemon on his side of the field.
Not in the best position right now. The Trick Room play is great, and I love the fact that Matteo didn't protect there. It was such a tempting thing to do to make sure that if you got the Trick Room up, you were in that position where you were able to get it. But the other thing to consider here is the smart targeting of Dragon Darts. If you protect with the Annihilate, the Dragon Darts would go into there, so you weren't really in much of a situation where you could protect with the Annihilate, even though you wanted to, because the Porygon 2 would have went down. But we are going to see the Porygon 2 just keep itself on the field a little bit longer with that recover.
But the Drain Punch cannot be said the same for this Dragon Ball. That's going down. A nice another bit of recovery here for this Annihilate. Perhaps Michelle's game plan heading into this game is not going to the plan that he envisioned as the Dragon Ball and the Terrestrialization option is down. And now he has a good few turns of Trick Room to see out right now. That close combat just not doing enough. And the Sneasler just reducing its own defenses. It is carrying the Focus Sash, so that means that it's going to be surviving at least one hit here. And that Poison Touch on the Sneasler, really great ability that it has. Really nice for it to come out here, actually, into the Porygon 2, so it will be whittling it away. It can still recover, of course, and perhaps Michelle was hoping that at some point he could Dire Claw that Porygon 2 and buy some time, put it to sleep, perhaps, but as it is, just the Poison.
Yeah, the Poison is great, because you're kind of almost locking that Porygon 2 into the decision where you have to go for the recover to stick around on the field long enough. But if you do that, you're not getting any offensive kind of damage out, and you really want to be doing that with the Trick Room. And if you decide to go for an attacking move, not hitting anything for super effective here with that Terrestrialization, with the Primarina coming out. This is why it complements this Dragapult and the Sneasler so well. Coming out in front of these 2 fighting-type Pokemon, going to be able to really put on a lot of pressure, and both of them have taken a lot of damage so far as the Rillaboom is joining the fray.
Yeah, Rillaboom joining really, really healthy, and Annihilate going to be able to recover a little bit thanks to this grassy terrain that's been so kindly set up by the Rillaboom here. Here comes a Terra-fighting Terra Blast into the Rillaboom that's just joined here. Love to see that Terra-fighting Terra Blast animation. It's so cool. Rillaboom taking just a little bit of chip damage right now. And the Annihilate, it just goes to show the fine margins that come in at high-level competitive play. If Matteo hadn't gone for that bulk up on the earlier turn, then the Annihilate would have gone down to the Dragon Darts, and then Mikhail is in a much easier position heading into the rest of the game. Or an easier, I'm not sure about much. And even though it was surviving on such little HP, look at that. The Annihilate now back at half, essentially.
Yeah, and it has got access to the Drain Punch. It can go into the Rillaboom now and claim a little bit more of that health back, of course, with the immunity to the Fake Out. Doesn't need to worry about that there. Porygon 2, on the other hand, does, of course. And the Primarina is still in that position where it really isn't threatened too much other than the Rage Fist. It does have to worry about that because it has been boosted a couple of times now where it will be hitting extremely hard, especially after that bulk up additional boost to its attacking stat. But the nice thing about getting the Sneasler off the field was you reset those close combat drops, so it can come in a little bit fresher than it was feeling at close combat or two ago.
But the Rage Fist stacks onto the Annihilate will remain even after it switched out, as Grimmsnarl is going to be joining the field right now. It will set up the screens. It's interesting to have Grimmsnarl in the back. You don't often see that, but nice targeting from Michelle there. Into the Grimmsnarl, bringing that Grimmsnarl down very low indeed. But Prankster ability means that the Grimmsnarl is going to be able to set up screens and go for other status moves before anything that Michelle can do.
Yeah, but you've got that Fake Out now access on the Sneasler on Michelle's side, so you can slow down that Grimmsnarl a little bit, and maybe even go into the Porygon 2 to prevent it going for any other supporting options like resetting up the Trick Room again. And, you know, I think it's a really nice option here. You want to try and get rid of that Grimmsnarl as soon as possible, so it forces that Annihilate back out onto the field in a preferable position where you have then got that Primarina still healthy. It's not really threatened here, and it is able to close this matchup against that fighting Terra-type Porygon 2 that's really not looking forward to taking any potential Moonblasts on that slot.
Well, there comes the Fake Out into the Porygon 2 instead of the Grimmsnarl, so potentially it could have stayed on the field here, but Moonblast connecting now, Super Effects down to Porygon 2, still not enough, but this is where the poison could come in absolutely crucial if that grassy terrain weren't on the field. It's recovering and it's taking it slightly away. Matteo trying to pivot around really expertly here with the Annihilate and the Grimmsnarl in the back, but actually that poison was enough, just about, to secure the knockout onto the Porygon 2, so that's the Terra down as well for Matteo. Michelle now at a 3-2 Pokemon advantage.
Yeah, just controlling this match extremely well, making it hard for Matteo to get any sort of momentum here, and coming down to the Grimmsnarl, it is going to be able to come in, it is going to be able to offer some sort of screen support. You got to expect it would be the light screen to give you a little bit more support against that Primarina. Go for the Rage Fist into that Primarina, try and remove it from the field. But if Michelle kind of detects that, can just go for a Protect here and utilize that Sneasler. Sneasler has got the Focus Sash still intact, so it has got that little bit of a security blanket where it can get an attack off, remove something, or just get some useful damage onto that Annihilate.
It's actually going to be the Reflect coming out onto the field as Diaclaw connects down into the Grimmsnarl, secures the knockout. Michelle has been playing this so well. Of course, the Poison activation from Poison Touch on the Sneasler was very fortunate for Michelle there, as the Rage Fist connects down to Primarina, not enough to secure the knockout, and Primarina is able to recover a little bit of HP thanks to its berry. But as it turned out, that poison that came out from the Sneasler was just enough to secure the knockout on the Porygon 2. It's absolutely huge. And there's the Moonblast. That is going to be finishing up the Annihilate right now. And that is going to be Michelle Kelsch advancing to 5-0, winning Swiss Round 5 here in Dortmund.
Incredible, incredible play from Michelle, and our winner of round 5, and doing it in such...
And you just make sure that they can't knock your...
Call out the skill swap on the Gothitelle as well. Would be so cool to see that coming out. But for now, it's going to be Basculegion. It's going to be Archaludon facing down another bridge across the field in the Archaludon, and there is that Incineroar.
Incineroar getting the Intimidate. It's going to be making sure that that Basculegion is kept a little bit in check. But if there's anything that I've learned over Regulation Set H, Basculegion with adaptability is definitely not something to be underestimated one bit. Now, both of the Pokemon on Longyu's side of the field aren't able to protect themselves whatsoever with the Assault Vest and the Choice Scarf. And that gives Eloy a little bit of room to maneuver whether or not he wants to go for a Fake Out into the Archaludon on Longyu's side of the field, and then maybe try to launch an Electro Shot into the Basculegion slot and just start putting on the pressure, start taking those key knockouts so that Perish Song is an option in the end game. That is if, of course, he's brought the Politoed.
Flip turn coming out into the Incineroar brings down to about half HP. May I just point out, Ben, that the Archaldon being run by Eloy is Terra Bug. That's an interesting thing that we might see coming out later on in the game as Longyu gets the opportunity to pivot round, decide which Pokemon to bring in from the back in place of that Basculegion. Deciding time for Longyu as it's going to be hitting the field, the Amoonguss, so hopefully able to sponge up something coming out from the Archaldon. Dragon Pulse doubling up into this Incineroar, and Dragon Balls returning right into Longyu's own Archaldon. A little bit of chip damage and a stamina boost to boot. Don't always see Dragon Pulse and Archaldon, more likely the Draco Meteor for heavier offense, but Dragon Pulse you can use over and over again with no recoil, whereas Draco Meteor you drop your special attack.
Well, I think that Amoonguss is going to be happy that it's not a Draco Meteor that's threatening it right now. And I think, you know, with that damage trade, Eloy's got the better... got a good side of it, got some damage onto the field, but Longyu's really got the better end of it here, doing lots of damage to that Incineroar. There's no way for that Incineroar to recover any HP, and you definitely do want to take these knockouts if you're Longyu. You want to be making sure that all of those fast defensive Pokemon that Eloy has available to him are kept a little bit more in check, and to activate your own Basculegion and make sure that it can come out in the end game and be most threatening.
Citrus Berry knocked off from the Amoonguss, so it's not going to have any big recovery option, but it will get a little bit of recovery at the end of each turn from this grassy terrain that the Rillaboom has kindly set up for it on the field. Body press with that +1 to the defense after the Dragon Pulse coming out from Eloy's own Archaldon into the Rillaboom here, and Pull and Puff able to heal up this Archaldon right back to full health. It's really interesting as well, the leftover set that Eloy's running on his own Archaldon, because it is still the stamina ability. Assault Vest gives you more longevity, you're able to take more hits and then boost up that body press even further. So doesn't quite work out so well synergistically, but the leftovers and the passive recovery, bolstered by the grassy terrain set up by the Rillaboom, could well pay dividends.
It certainly could, and you know, this is usually the name of the game for these Archaldon mirrors. How do you dispatch your opposing Archaldon without giving the opposing Archaldon enough stamina boost to activate the body press, make sure that's doing as much damage as possible? It really is one of those games where you have to be very careful of your targeting, but I think Longyu's going to be very happy that there's not too much offensive pressure left on this Amoonguss, and it's just able to keep Archaldon on Longyu's side of the field nice and healthy.
Well, time to get grassy for this Archaldon. Time for it to take a walk in the meadow of its very own. Going for the Terra Grass over on Longyu's side of the field. Fake out connected down into the Amoonguss. No spores from you today, sir. No thank you, as body press coming out once more into the Rillaboom. Dragon Pulse into the Amoonguss. Eloy deciding that it's time to remove this Amoonguss from the field before it can get up to too many spory, rage, powdery antics. And of course, if Longyu were to hit into Eloy's own Archaldon with Dragon Pulse, it would do far more than Eloy's would to it, because it's not carrying the Assault Vest, not bolstering its own special defenses.
I like how both of these players are approaching this matchup. They're targeting down the glue of each other's teams and trying to sort of pick apart the pieces so that they can, you know, launch more powerfully into the real threats, which are the Basculegion in the back for Longyu, the Archaldon, and of course the Archaldon on Eloy's side of the field as well. So yeah, I really like how they're approaching it, but I think Longyu's a little bit further ahead because of all of that damage on the Incineroar. It's going to be very difficult for Eloy to be able to pivot those Pokemon in, and if the Amoonguss now goes for a switch out, it's going to recover a lot of that HP that it's already lost.
Regenerator coming in clutch here, able to recover Amoonguss when it switches out. But here comes King Gambit joining the field right now. Huge switch in here as body press brings the Rillaboom down really, really low. Wood Hammer connects down to the King Gambit, takes it very well, as the Amoonguss would have done as well. Very threatened by a body press that could come out from Eloy's own Archaldon here, but no, it is the Dragon Pulse. Not expecting the King Gambit switch in. That is now resisted by the King Gambit with neutral damage into the Amoonguss.
And the King Gambit coming in, showing how good the Steel type is defensively. But with the Archaldon already gone for its Terra Grass on Longyu's side, that King Gambit is vulnerable to getting hit with a body press. But there's an Amoonguss in the back, Charlie. I mean, it can just switch in. These Pokemon can rotate, and of course, Amoonguss has recovered a bunch of HP already. So I think Eloy's got to find a way to really leverage this Archaldon coming into the mid-game a little bit more to try and get that damage on the field. Eloy's already activated stamina once on Longyu's Archaldon, which is causing more problems than I think it might have been worth to target down into that slot.
Of course, what Kingambit's also doing is preventing Eloy from switching safely into the Incineroar. Ooh, looked like he was very nearly out of time there as Eloy was locking in the move. As it is, Kingambit just going for the protect. Dragon Pulse now connecting into the Rillaboom. That's going to be easily enough to secure the knockout on the drumming Gorilla. And now the Archaladon left on the field for Eloy. Attempted the body press into the Kingambit, but perhaps a little bit predictable over on Longyu's side, given the Kingambit is so very vulnerable to fighting type moves. Takes double super effective damage, being a part dark type and a part steel type. And there it is. So what I was saying before, the Incineroar would drop the attack stats for everything on the field with Intimidate, but then you get a double boost to your attack with the Kingambit, and that can snowball out of hand very quickly, especially when you have a ghost type in the back.
It's a hard choice that Eloy's got to make here. Do you bring in the Basculegion to try to bait out a Sucker Punch from the Kingambit? Maybe you go for the Terra option with your Basculegion as well to try and not be knocked out, just turn it into a pure water type. But then if you switch in the Incineroar and the Kingambit just goes for a Kowtow Cleave, maybe the body press isn't quite enough. It probably will be enough to pick up the knockout, but maybe Eloy goes for the Dragon Pulse onto the Archaladon. Then you're really in some problems here. You can't really switch in and out for the situation there. So I think Longyu has positioned themselves very, very well in this battle.
Yeah, really playing around masterfully here. And Eloy, you know, Electroshock can be huge coming out from the Archaladon, boosting up his attacks, but of course you haven't brought the raid, neither trainer has. Pelipper and Politoed left on the bench, and so can't go for that really powerful move either. Not that, you know, it'd be good into the Kingambit, but then you're going to be wanting to go for the body press either way, but potentially heading into game 2 could be looking for a Perish Song strategy. But that's going to be Dragon Pulse coming out into the Basculegion, staying in with the Basculegion. Really bold there. Critical hit, last respects, into the Amoonguss, with just the one Pokemon felled over on Eloy's side of the field. I wouldn't be surprised if that critical hit did matter, actually, to pick up the knockout onto the Amoonguss. There's the Dragon Pulse into the Archaladon, a little bit of chip damage there, and of course the Amoonguss is now down, so it can't go for another Pollen Puff to heal up this bridge.
No, but this Archaladon is looking pretty scary right now. When you've got the mirror match between Archaladons and one has Assault Vest and one does not, the one that doesn't definitely has the overall advantage here, but again, a decision for Longyu to be making here, and you've got the option, bring in the Scarf Basculegion. One of your Pokemon has been knocked out now, so you have the last respect sort of halfway set up, so to speak. It's certainly getting going, and if you go for the last respect into the Basculegion slot, it's probably going to knock it out pretty easily. There's no rain coming out from either player, so Electroshot isn't even a risk in this situation because it's going to take 2 turns to get set up, and you can just switch out the Basculegion afterwards, maybe have the Kingambit go down for Longyu. That increases the damage that the last respect is going to do on that adaptability Basculegion, and you can kind of try to mop up the end game.
Yeah, and it's important to note that the Basculegion for Eloy holding the Life Orb, whereas Longyu uses the Choice Scarf. So Eloy can switch out the moves he locked into right now with that Basculegion, whereas Longyu does not have that luxury. Would have to switch out the Kingambit. And as Eloy once again brings the timer right down to the wire, it's time for Eloy's own Archaladon to go for its Terra. And that's right, trainers, this Archaladon is about to get some antennae. It's Terra Bug. Not a Terra type that we see that frequently at all, but of course what this does is resist ground type moves where once they were super effective. Just to name one, really interesting team building decision here. Eloy's Basculegion being able to go for a protect, not holding that Choice Scarf. Last respects coming out from Longyu's own, and so now we know that Longyu's Basculegion is locked into last respect, unless we're to switch out. Another thing that Terra Bug does is resist the body press, of course, and give a nice stamina boost to this Archaladon. Terra Bug may well just be the thing that saves the day for Eloy, but only time will tell. Going for the Electroshot outside of the rain as well, knowing that the Basculegion, although it cannot protect and just block the attack, it would have to switch into the Kingambit, and then the Kingambit takes a lot of damage as well, especially after that boost to the special attack. So Eloy really, this is a really fantastic play from Eloy, getting a stamina boost, not taking much damage, as well as a special attack boost.
And also being able to set up the stamina as well, taking that Dragon Pulse from Longyu's Archaladon, kind of gets it, also the body press from Longyu's Archaladon, it kind of gets it set up and going, and it sort of equalizes the playing field, neutralizes the advantage that Longyu's Assault Vest is affording his own Archaladon. Yeah, they're going to be trading Dragon Pulses, but it's not just Dragon Pulses that are going to be traded. This Electro Shot is going to do a lot of damage, potentially into this King Gambit.
Yeah, and the King Gambit, of course, has taken a little bit of health away as well, so it could be enough. Only time will tell. Basque Legion hanging on in the face of the Dragon Pulse. That's Last Respects. Just a little bit of chip into Longyu's Archaladon here. And another stamina boost to boot. Life Orb, of course, at the expense of some HP at the end of each turn. Going to be taking down that Basque Legion. So, here's the Electro Shot into the King Gambit. Is it going to be enough to secure the knockout? Yes, it is. That's King Gambit down. It's going to have to be the Basque Legion coming back out. Basque Legion's going to have to choose a move, and it's going to be locked into that for the remainder of the game.
But I think that's a good thing for Longyu overall here. One more Pokemon has been knocked out. Incineroar's on such low health. I mean, yeah, okay, the Incineroar's going to intimidate the Basque Legion. That's going to stop it from being quite as effective. But Basque Legion's, yeah, it can take a couple of hits. Maybe not so well now that the Archaladon on Eloy's side of the field has got its special attack boosted, but it's at least going to be able to take one, and it takes 2 turns for an Electro Shot to get set up. I do think this is the right call for Eloy, though. Get the Archaladon set up as much as you can, overcome the Assault Vest, get the special attack boost, and when you're in the 1v1 Archaladon versus Archaladon, you want to be the one with more boosts than less.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the best option for Longyu to be able to deal damage to this Archaladon really is Dragon Pulse. You can go for Electro Shots of your own. That's going to take 2 turns to work. As it is, Fake Out going to be connecting down, so it won't be moving here, getting another stamina boost, but that is okay when you have some special attacks on your own Archaladon. That's Last Respects, but just look, with the stamina boosts into that Archaladon, how little damage that does. Stamina boosting the defense after each hit it receives. Not necessarily even physical attacks can be special as well, boosting the stamina. And this is going to be another Electro Shot, another boost to the special attack here, realizing that in order to deal significant damage to Longyu's Archaladon, you're going to need those special attack boosts.
And you can see the effect of the leftovers really helping out here. Turn after turn after turn after turn. Yeah. They're really doing a lot of work. And of course, in the mirror match, Terra Bug is also doing a lot of work because you can attack into the opposing Archaladon. You can raise its defenses, its stamina boost, give it its stamina boost because you resist that body press. It makes such a big difference here.
So Last Respect's going to be easily outspeeding the Incineroar, of course, with the Choice Scarf. Incineroar going down, but if there's one Pokemon that can turn things around for Eloy, if there's one Pokemon you want remaining to you, it's definitely the Archaladon. Longyu is getting the idea, and now getting the idea from Eloy, and now going for an Electro Shot of their own, but is it too little too late? As Electro Shot will be connecting down into the Basque Legion here, and that's going to be easily enough for the one-hit knockout. Interesting to get rid of that Basque Legion, because it feels like the Archaladon for Longyu is maybe slightly more of the threat to Eloy's Archaladon right now, but that's it. It's just going to be these bridges facing off. It's certainly not going to be an abridged battle.
Not an abridged. That's a good one, Charlie. That's
thank you.
That's yeah. We'll be here all weekend, traders, as Electro Shock comes out, of course, from Longyu's Archaladon. That's doing a lot of damage. You can see the effect of not having an Assault Vest here. It's not hanging on. It's hanging on by just a thread. But Archaladon on Longyu's side cannot hang on from that 2+ Dragon Pulse. It's going to be going down, and Eloy is taking game 1.
The drawbridge is wheeled back in for
What it was lacking was that pressure into the Archaladon in the end game. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that this game round. Archaladons facing each other down, but they're on the other side of the board.
Yeah, exactly.
This time coming out in the other orientation. Rillaboom and the Basque Legion coming out for Eloy and Longyu.
Yeah, these Archaladon just cannot escape each other no matter where they maneuver across the field. Rillaboom really threatening the Basque Legion over on Longyu's side here. And the Basque Legion is Terra Water, so very threatening indeed. You can't fake out the Basque Legion, but you can just go for a Grassy Glide. You could switch in something from the back, then Eloy could use that to the advantage. You know, maybe it's the King Gambit, say, and then you could target that with a body press. It would be a big old call, but and potentially too bold for this early on in the game. But these are the decisions that might be going through Longyu's mind right now.
Fortune favors the brave.
Yeah.
Bold. I'm not sure what the term is, Charlie, but you know,
you could have been safe just sticking with brave.
No, we'll go for the brave here. And let's see which trainers have been brave in this turn, as it's a first turn terrestrialization from the Archaladon. I'm not sure which one that is, though, Charlie. It is, in fact, Longyu's, the Terra Grass Archaladon coming out here.
Terra Grass immediately for Longyu here. Interesting decision. Of course, the Rillaboom does have access power, not doing very much damage. So really nice call from Longyu there.
Double stamina boost, and we saw how much damage the stamina was doing in the previous game, and here's the Assault Vest doing its best work here, making its best work here, making sure that this Archaladon on Longyu's side of the field remains healthy, and a good terrestrialization there against the high horsepower. Now the Archaladon on Longyu's side of the field has not one, not two, but 3 defense boosts from its stamina, and it's going to be doing putting on a lot of pressure. Of course, we know that the Terra bug on Eloy's side of the field is on his Archaladon, but it's almost forced at this point in the game. It almost has to avoid being knocked out in one, and that gives Longyu a lot of flexibility. It gives him a lot of space to take advantage of, and also to, as we saw in game 1, pull and puff the Archaladon on Longyu's side of the field back to full HP.
Yeah, pull and puff can pay massive dividends here, but the Archaladon on Longyu's side really taking a significant amount of damage here, so potentially something Longyu is considering. Time for Archaladon for Eloy's end to go for its favorite Terra bug here, looking a little bit more like a centipede right now on the field, or indeed a scolopede perhaps, going for that victory cry. Body press now connecting into the Rillaboom, much safer targeting that slot just in case of the terrestrialization coming out from Eloy's side, which of course it does, and Wood Hammer giving a nice little another stamina boost to Longyu's Archaladon. A little bit of chip from the recoil that the grassy terrain will be recovering back. Dragon Ball's not going to be enough to pick up the knockout there. Another stamina boost to boot. And if this Amoonguss has gone for the pull and buff, which it has, all of that work by Eloy undone.
And you got to respect the play from Eloy. At some point, it doesn't matter how many stamina boosts the Archaladon has got. You're almost fishing for critical hits at that point. You need to make sure that you're targeting into it and giving yourself the opportunity to be able to knock it out. And if that doesn't work out, hey, that's fine. You know, you won game 1. Maybe you have to think about the end game, see if you can find a solution, or if not, then you're thinking about game number 3. But in this case, Longyu has just set up such a strong board position. They only have to click body press for a little while, maybe have to worry a little bit about the Basque Legion potentially in the back. But if they body press and it doesn't go into a Pokemon that takes damage from it, like that ghost, unlike that ghost type Basque Legion, well, that's okay because Archaladon's here for the long game.
I'm surprised to see this Rillaboom stick around on the field for so long, to be honest. It wasn't offering that much against the 2 that Longyu has out on the field, and now it's down. So now can't switch in something and get around a Spore, which Rillaboom would have been immune to being a grass type. Electroshock being set up by Eloy's Archaladon, just hoping to fish for boosts that ultimately might be able to allow Eloy's Archaladon to take care of Longyu's own Electroshock going off on the next turn. But if you're Longyu, you can just Rage Powder that away, and wouldn't be very effective. Of course, wouldn't be very effective into Longyu's own Archaladon either. But here comes Incineroar joining the field. It's not like it's threatening either of the Pokemon on Longyu's side of the field with that much damage, because it doesn't have access to a damaging Fire-type move. It's Knockoff, Will-O-Wisp, Parting Shot, and Fake Out here.
Yeah, you know, fair enough. I mean, you've got to do something in this position. Archaladon has now locked into Electroshock. You've got to make that progress if you're Eloy. Find a way to do a little bit of damage. But I'm liking what I'm seeing here. The only threat, really, that Longyu has to be able to slow that Archaladon down on Eloy's side is going for the Spore. But the Incineroar has the opportunity to Will-O-Wisp, side Will-O-Wisp. We didn't see that come off because Body Press just gets the one-hit knockout.
Clean one-hit knockout there onto the Incineroar as Eloy going for these Electro shots. Just a tiny bit of chip damage. The important thing is it got the special attack boost on the previous turn. But there it is. That's Amoonguss deciding that this Archaladon has to get even more adorable and take a little snooze on the field. And just going to be Eloy's, as of yet, unrevealed Pokemon in the bag. So Longyu adapting masterfully here at a 4 Pokemon advantage. to Eloy's own 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's just excellent play there, not taking any risks whatsoever. And of course, because you know that our Chaladon on Eloy's side of the field has gone for its Terra bug, you know that the Incineroar cannot go for its Terra Fairy to resist a body press, and that's a completely safe Pokemon to body press into. If it goes for a fake out into the Archaladon, then okay, the Amoonguss puts the other Archaladon to sleep, and if it goes into the Amoonguss, well, the Incineroar gets knocked out and another Pokemon goes to back to its trainer. So yeah, Longyu playing objectively correctly, absolutely here in this position, and yeah, it's. I don't think Eloy's got what it takes to be able to get through this Archaladon now.
Yeah, the game has really run away in Longyu's favor, as now Longyu going for his own Electro Shot boosts. And I think in this game, the crucial thing, and it was important in the previous one, but crucial in this one, is that Pollen Puff coming out from the Amoonguss. Being able to heal up the Archaladon, or indeed anything of Longyu's choosing on his side. So you've really either got to be getting rid of that Archaladon before the Amoonguss can heal it back up, or you just target down the Amoonguss hard. But Eloy doesn't have the best resources to deal with grass-type Pokemon, but you do have Choice Specs Ice Beam on your Politoed.
Well, maybe that's the call. I mean, you speed up the Electro Shots for your opponent, but you also speed up your own Electro Shots. So maybe that's something that we can think about going into our likely, very likely, in fact, Game 3. As it stands, Eloy's got a few options to maybe draw things out a little bit. You've got to maybe get a double protect with the Basculegion, stop the Electro Shot going into it this turn. Then maybe, because you've got some special attack boost on your Archaladon, maybe you can get a critical hit, knock out the Amoonguss, or the Perish Song, try to knock out the Archaladon if it's in the lead. There we go.
Oh.
And
no.
Maybe in the late game. Maybe in the late game. I'm going to hold out hope.
Right, sure, okay. I mean, do you want to finish what you were saying about then where the game goes from there?
Oh yeah, you try to get rid of the Archaladon as quickly as possible, then your Archaladon combined with your support pieces is able to knock out all of the rest of the Pokemon. But as it stands, we've got Basculegion, we've got Archaladon, we've got Incineroar this time in the lead instead of Rillaboom, and Archaladon, of course, mirroring each other down.
Yeah, well, it's going to be the Basculegion being threatened by the Dark-type moves on the Incineroar, but then Incineroar threatened by the Water-type moves on the Basculegion. I don't know how these Archaladon find themselves in facing each other every single game.
They've done so well.
They must just think they're looking in the mirror. What's going on? And then the other one terrestrializes and think, wait, no, I'm not a Terrabug.
No,
what's going on? Oh, I see. No, you're actually another Archaladon. And Eloy, once again, bringing the timing right down to the wire. But let's see. It's got to be the Amoonguss lurking in the back for Longyu. But for now, it's time to get Crystalline. Yes, once more, it's time for Longyu's Archaladon to go immediately for that Terra Grass.
I think it's a good Terra type, especially with the lack of Fire type coverage that Incineroar has. The Will-O-Wisp is a little bit problematic, but there we go. Stamina boost getting set up straight away in this game, just like in Game 2, and making sure that it's just that little bit safer from its opposing Archaladon's body press and other physical type moves on the Incineroar.
Yeah, now Longyu has to decide which Pokemon to bring in from the back. We're going to have the reveal of something. Do you bring in the Amoonguss right now? I mean, what can it achieve? Yeah, you have the Pollen Puffs online for later in the game. And this is the thing, it's a hard one to call. You don't want the Amoonguss to be too vulnerable, but also you want it to be able to go for those Pollen Puffs as soon as you need it. But it's going to be the King Gambit coming in instead. Body press super effective into Incineroar, bring it down to about a third of its health. This King Gambit going to be taking a Dragon Pulse. It doesn't mind that one little bit. The King Gambit over on Longyu's side of the field does indeed have access to the Swords Dance, but it's Will-O-Wisp going into the Archaladon, which is a really nice play. So body presses aren't going to be dealing as much damage. You can also Will-O-Wisp, of course, into the King Gambit.
Even at 6+ stages of defense boosted, it's kind of like having 2 stages when you're burnt. It's like ×4 but halved, and you end up with this kind of thing where the maximum threshold of that body press is only 2 stamina boosts overall. And I really like that adaptation from Eloy, just making sure that body press, which has caused so many problems for Eloy across this set, is just a little bit less viable. And that might take the pressure off of Archaladon from Eloy. Means that it doesn't necessarily have to go for its Terra option, and one of the other Pokemon can, like the Incineroar, could go for Terra Fairy in the face of this King Gambit, and would probably be able to take a body press in this situation as well. Maybe get a Will-O-Wisp onto the King Gambit and sort of secure a board position so that Eloy can set up his own electroshocks.
Yeah, we've got to bear in mind as well that, you know, that Eloy's Archaldon is not holding that assault vest. We cannot stress that enough. Body press no longer be doing very much damage at all. Is that Incineroar? It does indeed go for its Terra Fairy. You called it, Ben. Freeing up a Terra option on another Pokemon. Eloy recognizing, I need to get this Archaldon set up now, so it's ready to go in the end game with boosted special attack. Knockoff coming out into Longyu's own Archaldon. That's really nice. Getting rid of the assault vest, so it's going to be softened up even further for the special attacks coming out of this Archaldon. King Gambit saying, right, I've had enough of this messing around, everybody. It's the teacher in this situation saying, look, class, settle down. I'm going to settle this with big cat-out cleaves after this Swords Dance coming out here.
But yeah, I mean, and that's a really good move for the King Gambit to be going for, but it's not going to be able to get off an attack, at least into the Incineroar, before it's gonna be vulnerable to a Will-O-Wisp. And now it's the Terra Fairy because of only the Dark type coverage on the King Gambit. It's going to be quite difficult for King Gambit to be able to knock out this Incineroar as well. So a really nice adjustment here, especially while the King Gambit is under threat of Electroshock. Now the special attack boost is gone up, but look how much damage that Sucker Punch did right there.
Oh God, I felt that Sucker Punch in the guts, Ben. That winded me almost with the follow-up body press. Eloy's not looking too pleased about that one. Electroshock is going to be fired off into the King Gambit. It's not the body press. It's not going to be enough for the knockout either. Thinking, maybe I should have just gone for the body press there. But perhaps, I don't know, maybe you're predicting the Amuga switch in, but it's got that double boost to its attack there. So interesting to see no body press coming out from Eloy's own Archaldon here. Parting Shot able to weaken Longyu's Archaldon even further. It's been softened up defensively. Now it's had its attack stats reduced too. Rillaboom going to be joining the field.
And with threatening the high horsepower, that high horsepower does have to come out while under threat of the Sucker Punch from the King Gambit there. That's really been nicely set up. Of course, last turn, the Electroshock had been locked into because the rain was on the field. So it wasn't able to do it that turn. But it could do this turn, or it could sort of start to think about it. Of course, the King Gambit can protect itself. It's not running the Assault Vest. That's on the Archaludon. So there's definitely some decisions to be made here about how you target down your opponent if you're Eloy. Do you call that the King Gambit goes for the protect, use the special attack boost that you've accumulated with Electro Shot, go for the fake out, go for the Dragon Pulse and try to target down that Archaludon that we know cannot protect itself, and then how do you beat a King Gambit? Well, put two things in front of it that it has to Sucker Punch.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you have the fake out online right now, and we have two unrevealed Pokemon for both Eloy and Longyu in this situation. Got Basculegion, we know, lurking in the back. As Archaldon goes for the protect that Longyu's own Archaldon is not able to go for. King Gambit also going for the protect here. Really nice for Eloy to stall that out to try and get a body press off later on, but we saw how much damage that Sucker Punch did. Doubling up into the Archaldon here. Longyu not really fearing this Rillaboom at all in this situation. High horsepower certainly threatening down the King Gambit here, but Longyu nicely set up. Even though the Archaldon is in a slightly weakened state, the King Gambit, the same cannot be said for that.
Well, I'm just looking at the HP recovery from a grassy terrain and the leftovers. It really is adding up now. The stamina boost is activated twice on Eloy's Archaludon, and that means that the Sucker Punch maybe it's not enough to pick up the KO at this point, but there's also this like cheeky little play that you could do, maybe Grassy Glide yourself.
Yeah.
That avoids the Sucker Punch from the King Gambit on the Rillaboom and makes sure it doesn't get targeted, but then you're covering, giving the Archaludon an extra defense boost so that it can probably survive a Sucker Punch from the King Gambit as well. So you're kind of covering two bases, and with the King Gambit just having protected itself, it's much more likely to be attacking, or at least attacking, or maybe even switching this turn. But no, just a switch out from that Archaludon.
Eloy hoping to catch a Sucker Punch into this Basculegion, which of course wouldn't do anything. Sucker Punch only activates if your opponent's readying a damaging move. Look how much damage that Sucker Punch does into the Rillaboom. Follow-up body press, and that is just Rillaboom down and out immediately for Eloy. So really well targeted by Longyu there. Feels feels like Longyu is kind of getting things pinned down.
Yeah, this is Eloy playing a little bit defensively, and you know, Eloy needs to play defensively. A Swords Dance King Gambit is definitely not something that you want to treat lightly, especially when it's boosted by the black glasses. But now the effect of Archaladon switching out here is that it doesn't have those stamina boosts anymore. It's susceptible to getting knocked out by a Sucker Punch. Basculegion, of course, carrying the Life Orb as well, is also susceptible to that. And of course, it's so difficult because when you're trying to target down that King Gambit to be able to knock it out, you've still got to respect the Archaladon that Longyu has access to. And there's still a Basculegion in the back. There's still an unrevealed Pokemon in the back for Longyu. He's positioned this so well and targeted so perfectly with that King Gambit.
Oh, Sucker Punch just easily enough for the clean one-hit knockout there. Critical hit, not mattering one bit. And that's going to be the Basculegion down. It might be a very powerful fish, but it's not necessarily one with the most longevity. And, you know, you're looking at what Eloy has left and you're thinking, well, how do you deal with Longyu's Archaladon? It probably is that Amoonguss in the back for Longyu, but doesn't even need to bring it out here. Longyu deciding, look, I can step on the gas as well as get nicely set up with my Archaladon. It's been softened up right now, but that doesn't matter. The King Gambit is there, providing such threatening Sucker Punches. Just too much health being left on the field. And once again, this Incineroar from Eloy, which, by the way, is going to make this King Gambit even more threatening, make the teacher in this situation even more severe, thanks to the Intimidate, giving it a double boost to its attacks. This King Gambit will now be at +3 in its physical attack. It's just shutting things down with the Sucker Punch. At least you can buy yourself a turn with the Fake Out. You can go for a Body Press, but of course the King Gambit can just protect. So yeah, Longyu, really well played.
Well, the King Gambit can also switch in this situation as well. Just bring in the Basculegion. That covers a Body Press, and then you can knock out this Incineroar that can't protect itself. And you leave it with Archaladon versus the 4 Pokemon on Longyu's side of the field. And even with the leftovers, the grassy terrain isn't gonna stay on the field for too much longer. So you're kind of whittling down the recovery in the long term. But 4 Pokemon against 1 is a very challenging place to be.
Yeah, I mean, you sometimes see the 1 Pokemon soloing opposing teams of 4, depending on what you have in the bag, but the Archaladon just not set up as King Gambit wisely protects from the Fake Out. Here's the Body Press from Longyu's Archaladon. Is able to take it, get a Stamina boost that's definitely too little too late. Dragon Pulse connecting down. Now, let's bear in mind, no longer has the Assault Vest, but still not enough to secure the knockout here. So it's just slowly heading towards, unfortunately, what seems like an inexorable loss for Eloy here.
But it would have been enough if the Archaladon hadn't switched out. It did get 1 special attack boost from the Electro Shot. So, you know, there's definitely a world where the Rillaboom made the prediction, went for either a Grassy Glide or switched itself out, expecting the Sucker Punch. The Dragon Pulse from Archaladon on Eloy's side of the field, knocked out Archaladon on Longyu's, and then there's a whole different game to be played from that position. But that's not the world that we're living in right now.
Yeah,
Longyu's made all of the right decisions, targeted absolutely perfectly. You cannot take that away from him right now. Eloy going for the protect, just trying to find a win condition in this situation. Will-O-Wisp, not connecting on the King Gambit. That was one of the ways that this could have been maybe a little bit better for Eloy, but as it stands, Kowtow Cleave with the critical hit, knocking out that Terra Fairy Incineroar.
Yeah, that's just salt in the wound, isn't it? I mean, even if you burn that King Gambit, can you come back in? I mean, it gives you a little bit more survivability. But then, once again, how do you deal with Longyu's Archaladon? You know, it's sort of kicking the can further down the road. But very well played indeed as we see the final couple of turns play out. I mean, we're probably not even going to see what that final Pokemon is in the back for Longyu. We've got to assume it's the Amoonguss there. But huge congratulations to both players. 5-0. Currently, now Longyu goes 6-0. Eloy 5-1. Still an incredible achievement. Well done to Longyu.
6-0 at the Dortmund Regional Championship.
Against the Whimsicott, and then suddenly Prankster's gone, so maybe you can just
go off Typhlosion, and then you've got that Specs Galarian Weezing as well. Whereas Giulio's side of the field are more setup based, and we are going to see the leads coming out. Giulio leading with that mouse hold and the Annihilate, and the wheezing out for Yvar with that Toad Scroll.
Yeah, so a very classic lead coming out for Giulio here. You've got to assume that Yvar has some sort of game plan against mouse hold Annihilate because it is such a common lead. The training on the speed on the mouse hold is going to be quite impactful here because mouse hold does naturally outspeed Toad Scroll, and if you are training it to be as fast as possible, you'll easily be able to get the beat up before the Annihilate. But then if you don't go for Follow Me, that could leave you susceptible to the Spore that could be coming out. There's not a safety goggles on the mouse hold. It is that Rocky helmet instead.
Because of that, we're going to see the Protect come out from the Annihilate, not take any damage this turn, and then an Acid Spray into the mouse hold here. Going to lower that special defense by 2 stages, which will in turn power up anything coming out from that Wheezing and return a taunt into that Toad Scroll. Going to prevent that Spore from coming off any further turns as a Dazzling Gleam. Just the move of choice here. It is going to be spread damage, not hitting the Annihilate here, and doing some big damage, picking up a massive knockout onto the mouse hold turn 1. So that beat up option from that side of the field is no longer possible for Giulio.
Yeah, that's a massive KO. Well, we said beat up's no longer an option. Yes, it is. Here comes the Whimsicott as well.
Round 2.
But yeah, there's no prankster, but assuming the Whimsicott would be run as fast as possible, given it's holding a focus sash, because you always run it in special attack and speed in that case. But yeah, the Toad Scroll does outspeed the mouse hold. That is quite impactful. It didn't really matter in that turn, but that's really good information for both trainers going into the rest of the best of 3. Whimsicott should still be able to get a Tailwind up, but if it does want to, like it is going for, it can go for that beat up. This is only going to be 3 hits though, because the mouse hold's already been KO'd. Now Rage Fist is 200 base power rather than 250, which you normally see. But yeah, Acid Spray, that's still super effective. And that's still really good damage into the Whimsicott.
Yeah, again, with the low and the special defense here. The Rage Fist going to come out before any Dazzling Gleam. Let's see what the damage is like. 200 base power, doing some big damage, but surviving as a Dazzling Gleam fired back in return and taking the Whimsicott down. Another one down, and the Annihilate taking a very big amount of damage for its trouble.
Yeah, if that would have been a 4 beat up into the Annihilate, that would have probably been enough to pick up the knockout on that Wheezing, but taking the KO on the mouse hold on that first turn meant that beat up wasn't as effective. And Incineroar's joining the field now. It's not going to be able to get an Intimidate off, of course, thanks to that neutralizing gas, but it does still have fake out pressure. You can go for a fake out into the Wheezing at least, but not into the Toad Scroll. That's exactly why it's going to be holding that covert cloak. You can very easily just go for a Spore here into the Annihilate if you want to. Earth Power would still do notable damage to the Incineroar as well. You've done so much chip damage to this opposing Annihilate. You can keep the Toad Scroll safe as well, which is what Yvar is going for. Getting that Killer Watch Roll in, that's going to be able to pressure some Tailwind support in the future.
Yeah, especially if we do see the Rage Fist into that slot, you've got that security of the Focus Sash, so you will be sticking around as the Wheezing does go down now after all of the work that it's put in, taking 2 Pokemon down with those Dazzling Gleams. As we do see that neutralizing gas now wear off, we are going to see the Intimidate, and perfectly timed from Yvar, getting that competitive boost. +2 as a Flablets does come out, doing some big damage, taking it down to its sash here, but the Killer Watch Roll in such a good position now. Is the final Pokemon that Garchomp? I didn't see when we were flashing through the switches there, but even if it is the Garchomp, but even if it wasn't, if it was a Toad Scroll, you can still lock into that Discharge. +2 after that competitive boost activated, but now in such a dominant position where, like you said, the tried and trusted formula is going to be that Disc-Quake combination, Earthquake and Discharge. Both Pokemon immune to each other and so oppressive, and we do see the forfeit from Giulio.
It didn't really do too much there. You would be able to go for a Tailwind straight away. That's if you were going still with the Annihilate strategy, but it seems like a complete switch up for both of the trainers here. It's going to be Incineroar and Dragonite for Giulio, but Yvar did switch up to the Killer Watch Roll, and there is that competitive boost immediately on turn 1. So yes, you've got an Intimidate on the Garchomp, but now you boosted that Killer Watch Roll.
Yeah, it's in a great position. It is threatened this next turn from that fake out, so it will have to either go for the Terastallization. You do that, you're committing that for the rest of the game, of course, but you can get some damage off, or you just go for a nice Protect, maybe utilize the Garchomp here to get some damage off, and you've got to be careful though in front of that Dragonite that does have those ice type attacks that are 4 times super effective. So if you are staying on the field, if you are attacking, you've got to make sure that you get the knockouts from here. But we are going to see that Terastallization into the Ghost Terror type. It is going to have the immunity from that normal type fake out. Attack coming from the Incineroar this turn, so it will be able to get an attack off. No fake out, Discharge coming out from the Killer Watch Roll. Garchomp immune to it, doing some big damage to the Incineroar, picking up the paralysis on that Incineroar as well as secondary effect, and followed up by a Dragon Claw. And not quite enough. The Dragonite just holding on there. The Life Orb boost, the Intimidate, so pivotal as an Ice Spinner coming out into the Garchomp. 4 times weakness there, enough to pick up the Garchomp, but the rough skin now, because the Dragonite just held on. Will it be enough? It will be enough to take down this Pokemon, leaving the Incineroar just to get the Flare Blitz potentially off into the Killer Ultra, but it has got that Focus Sash.
Oh, I didn't get it off. There is the secondary effect of Discharge coming into play. That is a full paralysis on the Incineroar, so we will never know what it was going to go for there. Breaking the Focus Sash would have been really, really good for Giulio, but no, that Killer Wattrel has it intact. It's able to survive another attack coming out from Giulio's side of the field. Whimsicott joining the field, and with the Wheezing joining the field as well. That means that the Prankster is turned off. You could have potentially gone for a Tailwind into a Flare Blitz into the Killer Wattrel to be able to break the Focus Sash, but even if the Tailwind was set now, you're being paralyzed thanks to that Discharge, and we see it's a 2-hit knockout. So yes, you can go for the Discharge, maybe even into your own Wheezing. Still do great damage to the Wheezing, but that would secure the knockout on the opposing Incineroar as well.
Yeah, it's perfectly timed with the Wheezing coming in here, and you think, oh, the Whimsicott coming in and has got that ability just to set everything up and get Giulio back into this game, but it's a lot more difficult. You do, if you are Giulio, have that Focus Sash, of course. You've got that security of being able to take at least one attack before going down, but the Tailwind now being set by that Killer Wattrel on Yvar's side of the field, followed up with a Sludge Bomb, enough to take down the Incineroar here, leaving the Whimsicott open to go for whatever it likes here, probably matching the Tailwind most situations, but we know from the speed interactions now that the Killer Wattrel is in fact faster than that Whimsicott.
Yeah, it is naturally faster than opposing Whimsicotts. It's actually in quite a nice speed tier that we don't usually see, because we don't really see a Killer Wattrel, but it's in a fantastic position here because now it's facing down the Annihilate. It could just go for an Air Slash, which is super effective, into that opposing Annihilate, probably going to force that Terrestrialization, but Sludge Bomb's going to be able to be very super effective into the opposing Whimsicott as well. Not even a Terrestrialization. That's just a one-hit knockout into the opposing Annihilate.
That is a huge knockout here. No change up from Giulio's side of the field. The Air Slash, enough competitive boost to take it down in one hit. Taken for its trouble, that Moonblast, and the Moonblast drop as well. The neutralizing gas. Otherwise, that Moonblast drop would have activated the competitive, but the neutralizing gas keeping it in check for now. Just keeping it at that +2, but the Wheezing doing enough. The Whimsicott taken down to a Sash, and it looks like a very quick-paced game here, and Yvar is going to be our next round winner here at the Dortmund Regional Championships. In what style?
We always call it a support Pokemon, and largely it is.
Into its bulk, but it can absolutely do some damage if you invest into its attack. We're seeing it straight away coming out from Anthony's side of the field. Paired up with a Flamigo, and there it is. We've been saying we want to see it. Here it is. There is that Vivian paired up with the Primarina.
And this is 2 for the price of 1 yet again here, and I'm really liking the position that the Primarina is in right now. Even though there's a fake-out pressure on the field, Flamigo's only damage-dealing options are Close Combat and Dual Wing Beat, and while Dual Wing Beat is going to do quite a lot of damage, most notably would go through the Focus Sash of the Vivian, it's not going to do too much to the Primarina, and of course Incineroar's same type attack bonus moves are also not going to be very effective. So while the fake-out pressure is on Federico right now, the Primarina is in a fantastic position next turn to be going for some damage.
Yeah, you're going to store this turn of fake-out, of course, coming out from that Incineroar, which is absolutely what was going to happen there. And yeah, Dual Wing Beat would be able to KO that Vivian through its Focus Sash. Not the common Brave Bird that we've been seeing on the Flamigo, so maybe just going for Dual Wing Beat because of the lack of recoil to break your own Focus Sash. But maybe Anthony was expecting all these Vivian to be able to come out, because now, yes, Flamigo is faster than Vivian. It's able to knock it out in one shot, so you'll be able to stop any of the Sleep Powders that could be Spore. I was going to say Spore. It's not Spore. It's close.
It's close.
It's Sleep Powder.
Close.
It's really good Sleep Powder, but it's slower than Flamigo, and that would be able to pick up the knockout with the Dual Wing Beat.
And that's why Vivian is going straight back to Federico, deciding to switch in there Incineroar. The Intimidate's going to come out onto the board, but not going to affect that scrappy Flamigo. It's going to be attacking at full power this turn. And yeah, here we go, the dual wing beat. No close combat called into the Incineroar on the switch in, just going for the safe play there. Incineroar taking that like an absolute champ. Parting shot, slowing down that Primarina, but most notably, even though Federico is going for a faster, less Trick Room orientated team, the Incineroar on Anthony's side was faster than the Primarina, and that's not something I would have necessarily expected.
No, but it's going to be impactful here because that Incineroar gets out of the field, so it's not going to be able to take any of the super effective hyper voices that is coming out from the Primarina. And yeah, look at that. That Porygon 2 took absolutely nothing, but the Focus Sash is broken on the Flamigo, and that was still, like, it didn't do that much damage, but the Focus Sash being broken means that Moonblast can now be a KO, even at -1. Flare Blitz is still probably a KO into the Flamigo as well.
And of course, we can see the Terra Ghost there on the Incineroar. That's definitely a call that both of these players are going to have to be thinking about, because if the Flamigo just goes straight for the close combat into the Incineroar and it goes for a Terra Ghost, it's not going to do anything whatsoever.
It will, because of the Scrappy. That's exactly why we see Flamigo. Yeah, yes. It would be a defensive Terra, so it would go back to neutral. So based on the dual wing beat damage, maybe it would survive, but yeah, like it would still hit it for sure. So the Terra Ghost, it won't get an immunity there, but sort of Flamigo is not going to be going for that close combat. Of course, if you're facing down an opposing Incineroar, switch in your own Incineroar, get that Intimidate back on the field.
I like that play quite a lot, and not just because it's the consistent Incineroar cycle that we've come to know and love in the video game championships, but because it means that the Flamigo is safe for later. It's definitely going to be one of those Pokemon that's going to make a big impact in the end game. You want to make sure that it's still there when the Vivian comes back onto the field, just to pressure away those sleep powders. Moonblast doesn't do much damage whatsoever, and a parting shot into that Porygon 2 is going to lower its stats. Most notably, the download boost was on the attack, not the special attack, so that Porygon 2 is going to be struggling to do damage right now.
Yeah, but it would still be able to break a Focus Sash of this now switching in Vivian that has hit the field, but no, it's not going to be attack, it's going to be the Trick Room instead. And very, very impactful there that we saw that the Incineroar was outspeeding the Primarina, so actually, this is kind of benefiting the Primarina to be in this position. Vivian is now the slowest Pokemon on the field, so going for a Sleep Powder into that Porygon 2 might not happen if the Porygon and the Incineroar just double up into it with a Flare Blitz and a Terra Blast.
Especially since the Primarina has its stats already dropped, its special attack has been dropped, it's probably not going to be able to, well, we saw it's not going to be able to do anything to the Porygon 2. It's probably not going to be able to do too much to the Incineroar either, so could be something that's worth considering is going for a haze in this situation, reset your own stats, and then you kind of make Hyper Voice a little bit more of a viable option.
Yeah, but there's just the Ice Beam, really good damage into the opposing Vivian. There's the Hyper Voice, but because of that earlier parting shot, not enough to pick up the KO on the Incineroar, which is now able to respond back with the Flare Blitz, and that's easily able to pick up the KO on that Vivian. No Sleep Powders into the Porygon 2.
I think after the Trick Room, the Vivian is kind of the weak link in the team in that situation, but now the Golden Go gets an opportunity to come in, and Golden Go with its Steel and Ghost typing is walling Porygon 2, so to speak. Porygon 2 can't do too much damage to the Golden Go whatsoever. And now that the Primarina is in a spot where the Incineroar has taken a lot of damage, the Primarina is going before the Incineroar, it's able to knock it out and allow the space for Golden Go to go for a boosting nasty plot, get itself set up, and maybe I guess if the Flamigo comes in and we're still in Trick Room, that would be putting a lot of pressure on the board.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with a Hyper Voice nasty plot. Maybe Anthony needs to consider reversing his own Trick Room now to be able to allow that Flamigo to outspeed the opposing Golden Go and then threaten the KO. But nope, not going to be reversing it here. It's going to be the Terra Blast for not really much damage at all into that Primarina, and that is able to respond back with a KO into the Incineroar.
I mean, Porygon 2 and Primarina are trying their best, and Primarina's doing a little bit of a better job than Porygon 2 right now. But just a make it rain on the Golden Go
really
there.
Good damage.
Yeah, really great damage. Single target, not a spread move anymore because the Incineroar was already knocked out. And if I'm not mistaken, that's probably putting the Porygon 2 in range of maybe a Moonblast from the Primarina if it's able to even land one at this stage.
Yeah, probably not Hyper Voice, not a -1, but yeah, Moonblast, that's going to be close. That should be able to pick up the knockout on that Porygon 2. Ursaluna has joined the field, but it's not burned yet, so it's not going to be able to do as much damage, but he's going to be able to pick up the knockout on the opposing Golden Go even without the Guts boost for sure. But the Primarina is still pretty safe here. The Headlong Rush probably won't pick up the knockout on that Primarina. You've got the Incineroar waiting in the back that you could switch in, reset the special attack drop that you've just taken on the Golden Go, and get the Intimidate onto the opposing Ursaluna, so your Primarina is definitely going to be able to survive and hopefully get that Moonblast into that opposing Porygon 2, and that looks like it might be exactly what we're seeing here.
Incineroar coming in, and as you said, Jamie, getting that Intimidate onto the field. Of course, it is Terra Ghost as well, so the Headlong Rush isn't going to be doing super effective damage at all. And now the Ursaluna, I believe, will get the opportunity to go for its Terra Ghost. Make sure it's not taking super effective damage from the Primarina and kind of get itself set up to be able to launch those powerful facades. You know the Trick Room's going to be ending soon. There we are, Headlong Rush into the Incineroar, not doing too much at all. You know the Trick Room's going to be ending soon, so you're kind of waiting for Flamigo in the back to be able to come in and deal with the Golden Go. In the meantime, Porygon 2's got to stay on the field and keep itself healthy with Recover.
Yeah, and that was really not much damage at all from that Hyper Voice. Even with the Headlong Rush dropping the special defenses of that Ursaluna, going for its Ghost Terra, so it was neutral to that Water Hyper Voice, means it's actually still pretty healthy here. And the Porygon 2, it looked like it could have been in range of Moonblast, but of course the Porygon 2 was slower than that Primarina, so even if it would have been a Moonblast into that slot, it would have been able to get that Recover first and easily be able to survive. And now the Ursaluna has got its Flame Orb activated. It's threatening huge damage with a Facade. A -1 Primarina should just about be able to live. Assumedly it's going to be a bulky Primarina, given it's holding a Citrus Berry. That should allow it to be able to survive that attack.
I think you're right, Jamie. I think that's exactly the sort of board state that we're in right now. And of course, the consistency of Hyper Voice coming out. I think, though, it's holding the Citrus Berry, so if the Primarina was able to take a Facade and then heal up a little bit, the question I've got is whether or not it would have been able to take a Dual Wing Beat afterwards, but we won't have to find out this turn because it's switching out for the Golden Go.
Yeah, not going to be able to go on the offensive here. If that would have been a Facade into the Primarina, Golden Go would have appreciated that a lot. But Porygon 2 able to recover once again, back up to full HP, and the Ursaluna was not targeted here at all. There goes the Eviolite from that Porygon 2, thanks to that knockoff from the Incineroar. So very, very solid play coming out from Federico here, right as the Trick Room is over.
That's a big, big deal. We saw how much damage to Make It Rain from this Metal Coat Golden Go did in the previous turn. It was single target, so it's kind of similar, like making all of the Make It Rains kind of single target in terms of the damage that it's going to deal. But I think I'm more worried for Anthony about the damage that can potentially be taken on the Ursaluna this turn, especially if the Ursaluna doesn't go for a Protect and Federico calls it, goes for a Shadow Ball, just knocks it out. I think that's most of Anthony's damage down. I mean, you've got the scrappy Flamigo in the back, but it can only target one Pokemon at a time, and its Focus Sash has already been broken.
Yeah, I reckon this is still going to KO, though, because it's taken a Headlong Rush to a special defense drop as well. So I reckon it would have survived without that, but yeah, the special defense drop, that's a KO on the Ursaluna here. Porygon 2 without its Eviolite has surely got to be in range of Flare Blitz as well. Yeah. So this is looking like it's going to be a double KO, and I don't think Flamigo, with a Focus Sash broken, is able to 1v3 here.
Only targeting one Pokemon at a time really is the downfall of Flamigo. If it wants to go for a close combat to knock out a Golden Go, then it's going to have to drop its own defenses. And even if it wasn't already likely that Flare Blitz was going to be able to pick up a knockout onto the Flamigo, well, yeah, after a defense drop, it probably would do. Of course, now that it's single target on Make It Rain as well, there's another scenario where the Incineroar goes down to a close combat, or maybe even a Dual Wing Beat if you're feeling confident about it. But then Make It Rain single target is probably going to knock out the Flamigo from here regardless.
Yeah, I would suspect it would. Even at -1, you got the Metal Coat boost as well. There does go the Incineroar down to that Dual Wing Beat, able to pick up the KO there. But now, like you said, this is still single target. Flamigo's defenses aren't great. to be honest. So even with this -1, there goes the Flamigo, and game 1 for Federico.
What a fantastic game that was, back and forward, but really the star of the show for me was that Federico.
I mean, assumingly that was what was scaring off the Golden Go, right? And there we go. We are seeing that adjustment absolutely coming out. And yeah, no Garchomp coming out for Federico side of the field. It's going to be Incineroar and Primarina that was doing so well for Federico in that previous game. But there's the Amoonguss paired up with the opposing Golden Go. The safety goals in the Incineroar here going to be quite impactful because you can ignore the Rage Powder that could be coming out. Assumedly, Anthony wants to be able to go for Rage Powder and Nasty Plot, and then suddenly there's the KO into the opposing Primarina, but you can't as safely go for that. You kind of need to commit your Terra into Terra Dragon straight away, which is going to be reasonable. Like, you resist Hyper Voice as well, and if you do Rage Powder, that's going to be able to draw away any Moonblast that would have been super effective into that Golden Go. So, yeah, Golden Go, like, it's threatened by the safety goals in Incineroar, but it's still in a somewhat reasonable position because it does have that defensive Terra of Terra Dragon rather than the common one that we usually see with Life Orb of Terra Steel.
Well, Primarina's not going to be sticking around at all. Maybe doesn't want to deal with the Life Orb boosted Make It Rains, regardless of the scenario. Golden Go going for the Protect, and I really like that. It looks like Anthony's trying to okay, I thought it was trying to get a little bit cheeky with the going for a Spore that Federico is covering, but no, instead just a double Protect to scout out the Fake Out. Now Golden Go's on the field for Federico, and these Golden Go are staring each other down, but there's redirection on one side of the field, but not the other.
Yeah, and Amoonguss is in a really rough position now because, yeah, you could redirect the Shadow Ball, and that would do really good damage into the Golden Go, but you can't Spore either Pokemon. There's the safety goggles and there's the Good as Gold ability that's going to be preventing that. So yeah, it's really awkward for that Amoonguss. Rage Powder next to Nasty Plot would have been really nice in that first position, but going for that very safe double Protect instead, that would have been a Terra Dragon and maybe a side Pollen Puff Nasty Plot. That could have put Anthony in an absolutely fantastic position, but playing too passively there allowed that switching of the Golden Go, and now it's almost like it's a 2v1 because that Amoonguss is really not doing anything and is forced to switch out.
I like the switch out though, and I think the Terra Dragon that you called out for turn 1 could be just as effective in turn 2 here. But Incineroar's going to come in, make sure that Incineroar on Federico's side of the field is kept a little bit in check on this turn, and we are going to be seeing the first Terra of game 2. It's going to be the Golden Go, and it's going to be a Terra Dragon, so that looks like that's going to be Anthony's Golden Go just trying to maybe get set up or even just put a Shadow Ball on the field.
Oh no, as Federico's, they're both Terra Dragon, and Federico's is faster, went for a Make It Rain instead. A very, very brave Golden Go here that did not go for its Terastallization from Anthony's side, launching off that Life Orb Shadow Ball. That was really good damage with the special defense drop to boot, but no Terastallization there. Yes, there was an Intimidate, but that's still a super effective knockoff that is not able to pick up the knockout on that Golden Go. Even after the Life Orb recoil as well, it holds on in the red.
And speaking of Life Orb recoil, Jamie, that's going to be impactful for 2 reasons. First is that it's not going to be able to do as much damage, but second, because it actually allows this Golden Go at low HP to hang on and attack turn after turn after turn. And now Golden Go on Federico's side, it was the faster of the 2 Golden Go. It's going to have to think about protecting from the Fake Out, but if the Incineroar reads into that on Anthony's side, fakes out the Incineroar, as we're seeing here, could open the door, but Federico not falling for it at all. Make It Rain, KOing that Golden Go on Anthony's side of the field.
Yeah, and that's one of the big ways through the Primarina taken care of. You've got Amoonguss and Incineroar that absolutely will not break through the opposing Primarina. I think you could tell by the reaction of Anthony there, that might have been a potential speed tie that he went for, because obviously he knows the training. If he is as fast as possible with the Golden Go, and Federico's was moving first, he knew that it could have been a speed tie. And there is the Flamigo there, so yeah, where's the damage into the Primarina now?
Yeah, I don't see it either. I mean, you've got the Amoonguss. What's the Amoonguss
it's just
running?
Puff.
It's just Pollen Puff. Yeah, so maybe it's the Incineroar.
It's not. No, it's not.
Just keep Pollen Puffing it back.
No.
Starting shot.
No, dual wing beat, I guess, is the best that we've got. So, and if you just break the focus sash of the Flamigo, then you just follow it with the Moonblast KO whenever you want now. So, yeah, really, really solid position for Federico. Even without the Primarina on the field, you just need to start chipping away at the Flamigo, and then, yeah, where is the damage going to come from?
Well, this damage is going to come from Flamingo into Incineroar, getting a close combat KO. But again, that leaves this Golden Go for Federico to make it rain yet again. It's at 2 stages of decreased special attack right now, but that doesn't matter. You can just break a Focus Sash, and wow, we're seeing the effect of how much damage that's going to be onto the Flamingo from game 1. Wow, that's even more impressive as the knockoff does knock out that Golden Go. But we're back. As you're saying, JB, we're back now to the Pre-Marina and the unrevealed Vivian coming out for Federico. And yeah, I mean, I guess the good thing for Anthony right now is that the Pre-Marina is slower than the Incineroar. So it does give you some opportunities to play a little bit aggressively into it. I mean, the Vivian has to be knocked out this turn kind of by the Flamingo, but then that opens the door to Hyper Voice coming out from the Pre-Marina. It's a really tough spot.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Flamingo going to be detecting it instead, but yeah, that's just a Hurricane into that instead of almost enough to pick up the knockout.
And the confusion.
And, yeah, confusion, why not as well, to be able to put it in range of maybe even KOing itself. There is that potential confusion, and it is able to get the parting shot off at least, so going to be able to reduce the premium just a little bit.
And not confused anymore because it's managed to switch its way out. So yeah, Incineroar will be back another day. But what a nice prediction there from Federico, just understanding that if the Flamingo was going to be going for damage, then you're going to be able to knock it out with that Hyper Voice. But if it just protects itself or switches into the Amoonguss, which was the other way that it could be played, well, you've got a good chance of knocking out, and if not knocking out, just nearly knocking out the Incineroar, making sure it can't just keep pivoting in.
Yeah, like, there might be a way back in for Anthony, maybe if you can get some spores off with the Amoonguss, you're going to be taking a lot of damage from the Hurricane. At any point, if you go for dual Wing Beat to KO the Vivian through its Focus Sash, well, that opens up the Premier to KO Flamingo with either Hyper Voice or with Moonblast. But then maybe spores can do stuff.
Does Hurricane knock out the... I don't think Hurricane doesn't knock out the Amoonguss, right?
It's a strong move, but Vivian itself isn't that strong, so I would assume an Amoonguss, even with that little bit of Hyper Voice chip, should probably be able to survive. Yeah, and then Flamingo's switching out, so maybe if the Amoonguss is able to survive, and it's got the Citrus Berry as well, so if it does survive the Hurricane, it will leave the Citrus Berry and definitely survive the Pre-Marina, and that would allow a Spore into either Pokemon here, which could maybe give Anthony a way back into the game, especially with that defensive terror, which means it's not going to be weak to the Hurricane anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good shout there from Anthony, just finding the last vestiges of hope there. And of course, you can actually reactivate the Focus Sash on the Flamingo while one Pokemon is asleep.
Compound Ice Hurricane missed there. So unfortunate. Going to be able to not do the massive damage it could have done. There is that Hyper Voice, able to pick up the knockout on that Incineroar as it was on such low HP. But yeah, the Amoonguss free to Spore whichever slot it wants to go for here. It's going to be that Pre-Marina. And now the Flamingo has been freed up to be able to not threaten the knockout into the Vivian with a dual Wing Beat as you Pollen Puff yourself. And if the Pre-Marina stays asleep for 2 turns, yes, like you mentioned, that's back up to Focus Sash.
Yeah, I think this actually could be a lot closer.
It could be doable.
It could be doable. Yeah, I mean, it's likely that the Vivian is going to have to protect this turn from the dual Wing Beat.
Yep.
And I guess, like, I in this situation would still target down into the Vivian with the dual Wing Beat, but I'm wondering if actually looking ahead a few turns, the extra damage from one extra dual Wing Beat, if the Vivian does go for a Protect, could actually clutch out an endgame depending on how long this Pre-Marina stays asleep for.
Yeah, you could play the odds. Like it's a 2 in 3 chance of you coming out and getting your Focus Sash back up if you don't target Vivian, but nope, correctly does target here. Federico trying to get a little bit cheeky there, but nope, dual Wing Beat went into that Vivian, and like we mentioned, over the Brave Bird wouldn't have done it, but KOing through the Focus Sash with the dual Wing Beat, very, very nicely done indeed. Pre-Marina was guaranteed to sleep that turn, so this is almost certainly going to be that Pollen Puff to try and heal that Flamingo back up, but you do need to risk the sleep this turn. You can't protect and Pollen Puff yourself. It has to be that you'll be able to Pollen Puff yourself back up. So if the Pre-Marina was going to stay asleep this turn, you get your Focus Sash back, and then suddenly Flamingo would actually be able to break through with that dual Wing Beat.
I tell you what, let's just put the Flamingo to the side for a moment. How is the...
It's on the reaction of Anthony, and it seems like it was what he's going for again. Interesting that he's leading with the Amoonguss as well, because now with a switch up immediately with this Incineroar and Golden Go, the Amoonguss is kind of useless again.
kind of useless, but it can... yeah, no, it can't even redirect, can it? So, yeah, but it does open the door for Amoonguss to just switch into Incineroar and cycle those fake outs, put some pressure onto the Golden Go on Federico's side. But in doing so, you do open the door for a nasty plot on Federico's side. So the question is what is Golden Go on Anthony's side going to be doing? Is it going to get a Shadow Ball into Federico's Golden Go like it tried to in Game 2? Or is it going to be felled again by the combination of attacks of Golden Go and Incineroar?
And there's no Terror here as well, so if that is Shadow Ball, it's going to be interesting to move forward. There it was. It was a speed tie. It was a speed tie, and Anthony wins it this time.
One hit KO.
Yes, a Life Orb Shadow Ball always KOs an opposing Golden Go. The Metal Coat one might not have been able to be strong enough into Anthony's, but yeah, the speed tie one in this case from Anthony's side of the field. So we did see that, and now the Golden Go on Federico's side taken care of. Here comes the Pre-Marina, but Anthony has just switched in Fake Out pressure to be able to go for a Fake Out very safely into the Incineroar, and nothing will stop the Nasty Plot. Yes, you could go for Haze, but you don't achieve anything on that turn. So yeah, that is a huge, huge speed tie win for that Golden Go.
And a massive shake-up to the momentum of this game. And now we've got to kind of re-establish ourselves. Like, now it's Federico's turn to find a win condition in a very bleak situation. I mean, you really do want your Golden Go to be doing good work in the matchup. You want it to be doing a lot of damage, but now, unlike in Game 2, Federico doesn't have the Golden Go to do that, and Anthony can take advantage of it.
Yeah, switching in the Vivian here, so it's nothing like a Garchomp again for Federico, which would have absolutely been the best way to break through the opposing Golden Go and Incineroar on Anthony's side of the field, which is now going for its Terastallization into that Dragon type. So unless there's a Moonblast coming out into it from the opposing Pre-Marina, it's going to very, very safely be able to click that Nasty Plot button, and it's not going to take any damage this turn because Pre-Marina is going for Protect instead. It was going to be a Fake Out into that Pre-Marina. Yeah, nice. That covers for the going for the Moonblast into that Golden Go, but this is a very, very free Nasty Plot.
And it doesn't matter if you lose the Life Orb at this stage. Your Golden Go's used the Life Orb to do what it needed to do. You called it out. Making sure the Shadow Ball knocked out the other Golden Go. Then you can just go for the Terror. If you get your Life Orb knocked off, well, doesn't matter because you got the
But you didn't. Instead. You didn't. So this is probably strong enough to KO the Pre-Marina now that you've got your +2.
+1?
Yeah, no, it was Shadow Ball. It's Shadow Ball. It didn't make it. It didn't make it rain as it so often does. It was Shadow Ball. This is +2 Golden Go. This might be enough to knock out the Pre-Marina in one shot. And even if it's not, it's going to bring it down so close to the red. Maybe just get that extra little bit of chip damage with the Incineroar. Because if you do go for a Flare Blitz into that Pre-Marina, that would put it in range of +2 Make It Rain with a Life Orb for sure.
Or you break the Focus Sash on the Vivian, or you just make sure that the Pre-Marina is not quite as threatening this turn. But I do wonder if that's a Haze coming out from Federico. That would really, really change the momentum here. And I'm a little bit surprised, actually, that Anthony didn't go on the offensive. As you say, it was so easy to be able to take big knockouts there. But Pre-Marina instead going for the Hyper Voice, not going to be very effective into that Amoonguss. And wow, this Game 3 is much different to the last two games.
Oh, for sure. And now that Amoonguss going to be able to keep that Golden Go safe from any Moonblast if it does want to. It threatens a Spore into that Pre-Marina that you could go for as well. You could Spore the Vivian. You could even Pollen Puff KO the Vivian after it's been brought down, definitely brought down to its Focus Sash after that +2 Make It Rain. Even if there's an Incineroar switch in, that's still going to probably take around half of its HP because of that boost and because of the Life Orb going on top of that. And then if you switch your Vivian out, then suddenly Pre-Marina is almost certainly KO'd or put to sleep as well. And if it's the Pre-Marina that switches out, Vivian, it's not really doing too much. Yes, Hurricane will do some very nice damage to the opposing Amoonguss. Maybe you still target the Golden Go and hope for some fusions. But yeah, it's Pre-Marina switching out here. So Incineroar, it will take this Make It Rain, but it's still going to be huge damage coming out.
And it's definitely not going to like it one bit, as Intimidate doesn't do anything. Incineroar is switching in just for that typing. Hurricane.
Oh, there it is.
Here we go.
Oh.
confusion off the Hurricane. That was one of Federico's win conditions here. And the Golden goes confused.
Oh, it hit itself.
It hit itself.
Oh.
No Make It Rain coming out from Antony's side of the field. It's going to be the Pollen Puff breaking the focus sash on the Vivillon, but that Vivillon is still on the board, and we saw already that it would be able to pick up a knockout on the Golden Go this turn if it wants to. It's got the fake out support next to it with Incineroar, so yeah, Federico finding a way to come back into this game free.
Yeah, normally you would be able to incredibly safely go for a double protect in this situation. It's not safe because maybe the Golden Go isn't able to protect because of another the confusion coming out from the Hurricane. If you can double protect, that's still pretty good because then you'd be able to Rage Powder away the Hurricane that could have been a KO into Golden Go and still get off your Make It Rain. But yeah, Federico going for the win condition that he can spot, getting that confusion into the opposing Golden Go. No double protect though coming out here. It is going to be a fake out into that opposing Golden Go and a massive Hurricane coming out from into the Amoonguss. It was enough to be able to pick up the KO thanks to that little bit of chip.
The little mushroom that couldn't, going down to the Hurricane there. Golden Go, of course, flinching from the fake out. Now Antony gets an opportunity to bring his own fake out here, but there is also that one unrevealed Pokemon, and it could be that Flamigo there, putting the pressure onto the Vivillon, putting the pressure onto Incineroar, and now there's some mind games to play. Does the Vivillon go for a Rage Powder to stop the close combat into the Incineroar? Is the dual wing beat just the move of choice, but does Vivillon protect from that and give Incineroar an opportunity to break the focus sash on Flamigo or do that last little bit of damage to the Golden Go?
Yeah, if you dual wing beats and KO the Vivillon, you won't be able to KO the opposing Incineroar here. Going for a protect, most likely it seems. There's the confusion, it hits itself again!
No protect coming out!
Confusion hits, that would have been a protect, keeping it safe, but there's the close combat into the opposing Incineroar. No Rage Powder coming out either. That's a clean one-hit KO into the opposing Incineroar. So is it going to be a Hurricane into the Flamigo potentially, or is it going to be a KO into that opposing Golden Go, which would free up the Premier? So there it is, there is the Hurricane into the opposing Golden Go, and it is able to pick up the KO. So we're back to where we were previously. Where is the damage now going to come into the Primarina?
Well, there's no Amoonguss this time. There's nothing to put that Primarina to sleep. There is the Incineroar that can parting shot and make sure that the damage on the Primarina has been put a little bit more under control. And of course, Antony does have that fake out pressure to give himself a little bit of breathing room in this end game scenario. But both of the Pokemon on Federico's side can go for a protect. You can just burn the fake out and then go for damage in the next turns. And of course, as we were saying, dual wing beat's probably not going to be doing too much to the Primarina. Maybe there's a world where the Citrus Berry gets knocked off. That might give Antony a little bit more opportunity to knock out the Primarina. But there it is, the double protect. No fake out going to be in play this turn.
No, but then that means you can very safely go for your dual wing beat KO into the opposing Vivillon, and then assumedly go for either the knockoff to get rid of the Citrus Berry, or maybe parting shot to try and allow your Pokemon to survive. There is also the mind game of, well, when you've KO'd this Vivillon, assumedly the Vivillon is now going down to the dual wing beat. The next turns, do you potentially wide guard on a Hyper Voice that would try and snipe off the Incineroar while breaking the focus sash of the Flamigo? Yeah. But then if you catch the Hyper Voice, then maybe here's another knockoff to get rid of the Citrus Berry or another parting shot, and then you should be able to survive. So like this could come down to a really, really interesting endgame. Like I can't see the real damage into the Primarina, but that won't matter if you survive through multiple turns of just, well, I'm chipping away and suddenly your Citrus Berry's gone, and now you're not doing much damage because of parting shots. This is going to be so incredibly close in this endgame.
I think Moonblast is definitely the play. I mean, Incineroar's going to do less damage than Flamigo to the Primarina, so you've definitely got to consider it. But of course, we haven't been talking about the option to go for the Terra. Is this going to be enough? Ghost on the Vivillon. Vivillon's not known for being good at taking hits. Certainly not
Your wing beats way weaker though, but no, it's close combat. He called it! He called the Terra! He went for the close combat into the Ghost, which is definitely enough to KO. We saw the dual wing beat damage previously. I don't think it would have been enough into the Terra Ghost, but he called the Terra Ghost. Absolutely fantastic. The Scrappy coming through in close combat. Cleanly one-hit KOs that opposing Vivillon, and there goes the Citrus Berry thanks to that knockoff from the Incineroar. That was like reasonable damage here. The Focus Sash is still in play for the Flamigo as well. Yes, there is the Hyper Voice to break that Focus Sash. I say break the Focus Sash, bring it down to the Focus Sash. So Is there's going to be enough damage here? Because, yeah, the Citrus Berry gone. Is Dual Wing Beat going to be enough paired with the Flare Blitz? Or do you go for potentially that Wide Guard to get an extra turn of Flare Blitz damage into the opposing from Pre-Marine as well?
But if you play the next level, then maybe the Flamigo goes for the Protect on the Moonblast, and the Incineroar gets an opportunity.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. There's no safe way.
Absolutely all mind games for these players to be going in the last turns of this game. I can't wait to see what these players... There's too much here, too many layers of different protection for these players to go for. It really does come down to the decision-making process. Who can get in the other player's mind and decide on what they're going to do? Well, Federico wants a little bit of a clue as to how Anthony's thinking this time, just going for the Protect. It is a straight Dual Wing Beat and a presumably Flare Blitz onto the Pre-Marina. Now, there hasn't been any Intimidates onto the Incineroar either.
Yeah.
So maybe that's actually enough, because there's no Citrus Berry anymore to be able to knock out that Pre-Marina just regardless. We're not actually playing mind games. Just the combination of attacks would be enough.
Yeah, but there's still no safe way. Yeah, like you could Moonblast into the Incineroar. There's the Wide Guard. Did he go for the Hyper Voice?
Okay, here we go.
This could be a tiny bit of extra chip into the Incineroar. So yeah, there's the Flare Blitz. It's not going to KO itself to the recoil. That's a little bit of extra chip, so that we're guaranteed. That's got to be in range of Dual Wing Beat now, because for me he's actually pretty strong. And there is the Hyper Voice. So that's an extra turn that Anthony has given himself. And Dual Wing Beat and Flare Blitz will be enough to KO this Pre-Marina. The Dual Wing Beat might, but it will be really close. But you've got the extra turn of Flare Blitz now. Dual Wing Beat not 100% accurate, of course, but it should be enough to be able to KO the Pre-Marina, and it does connect. There's the first Dual Wing Beat. There's the second Dual Wing Beat. That's in range of Flare Blitz.
Hit points.
We've seen the Incineroar faster than the Pre-Marina. It's going to be able to pick up the KO here, and somehow Anthony has clawed his way back and is able to win this round 8 and make it into day 2 of the Dortmund Regional Championships. And I think we're speechless.